graphic nature of this program, listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to The Blacklist. I'm Jason and we're here to talk about something very near and dear to my heart. And I'm joined by two very, very close friends. First, I'd like to welcome back Adam to the show.
Hello.
And now I'd like to take a minute and introduce none other than the infamous Angry Andy. Welcome. We finally got you to sit down and open your mouth. So we're here tonight to talk about a little video game. I know we don't talk about video games on the Blacklist, but there's a very, very important reason we're talking about this one. It's a game called City of Heroes, which I've brought up numerous times on our other podcast, Forward Compatible. And the reason that we're going to sit here and talk about it tonight is because City of Heroes is coming to an end November 30th. And we all decided that we wanted to sit down and discuss why we enjoy the game and why we care about it so much. So, without further ado, we'll go ahead and we'll jump right in. I finally got through an intro that was amazing. It's so awkward not having Tony intro us.
And I think you only used the word 10 times.
Shut your mouth, you dirty fucking whore. Clearly this is not a kid-friendly show. Okay, so, we've got it set up in shut up. In kind of a... That one was not a structured format. So I'm going to ask... So I'm trying very hard not to say it now. I'm going to ask some questions. We'll go around and discuss them. I sound like William Shatner. Holy shit. Okay.
You're welcome. Doggy licked me.
We're going to start with you, Adam.
Sure.
When did you start playing City of Heroes?
A couple years back, I don't remember when. I just remember that there was a guy that I was talking to on Facebook, and he had mentioned that he had played City of Heroes, and I had seen it before on G4. At least I think it was G4 back then.
Also coming to an end at the end of this year.
Really?
Yeah, they're closing down G4.
Oh, maybe we should do a podcast about that.
Nah.
But he got me into it. I played it a little bit. I didn't really get into it until I started working at GameStop, and then I met you, and you're like, I play City of Heroes. And then I was like, so did I. Well, and then I came back.
Sweet. Andy, do you want to go or do you want me to go?
It don't matter to me.
All right, go ahead. Go for it.
Adam, you're the one who actually got me into it. You showed it to me for a little bit. Yeah, you did something useful for once.
There's going to be a lot of Adam bashing on here, just so you guys are well aware.
They're homophobic.
No. Do you remember when you started? Do you remember what your account start date was?
I know the veteran thing that's here is 7 years.
He didn't have an account. I gave him
Yeah,
mine.
I know. I'm doing the math off of that. Because
Yeah, and we all know that you couldn't spell either. All right. I started playing December 24th, 2004. I got mine as a early Christmas present. Had seen the game in development, saw a lot about it, had never really jumped into any MMOs prior to that, was really interested in it. My mom picked it up for me. I got the collector's edition. She got me a time card with it, and I remember installing it on Christmas Eve and sitting there and playing it. It was awesome. By myself, didn't know what the hell I was doing. We'll get into that a little bit later. You kind of touched base on it a little bit a second ago, Adam, but maybe you want to go into a little bit more detail. Why did you start playing?
Because the guy told me to?
What attracted you, other than the guy, to a superhero MMO?
I had played other MMOs before. I'd actually played the original EverQuest for a little bit, but failed at that. I'd also played the EverQuest that was on the PS2 online.
Oh, God.
I think
EverQuest Online Adventures?
Yes, and I think Angry Andy played that as well with me.
Yeah, you were over at my place, and it took like 6 hours just to hit level 3.
It also took us like 6 hours to install the damn thing. But It was interesting because it was the first MMO I had seen where you could actually fly. And so I gave it a shot. I really didn't like it at first because I was playing a superhero, and superheroes aren't my thing. I didn't really get into it until City of Heroes brought out City of Villains.
Okay.
That really caught my attention.
2005, I believe, maybe 6. You'll have to excuse me. I know I'm the fact guy here, but I've been playing the game for literally 8 years. I think it
Trying to
is.
keep track
So
of how many
exactly
issues?
trying to keep track of everything is very, very difficult. Was that it for you, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll circle back around. Obviously, it's a little bit of an origin tale. Superhero pun number 1 there. You want to go into a little bit more detail, sir? Why you started playing and what brought you to the game? What did you see about it that you enjoyed?
For me, it was the customization. After playing Guild Wars for, God, I don't even remember how many years. What?
He's telling you to talk a little louder. That's okay. You'll have to excuse Andy. He's a little shy.
Yeah.
He'd rather be sitting on the in New Mexico playing video games, live streaming.
Much better. But after playing Guild Wars and WoW for extended times, and it felt all the same to then see customization where you can make your character your own and have your own style to how you want to play is what dragged me in.
Nice. I started playing it because I was a superhero fan. I always have been since I was young. I'm a huge Batman fan. That's another thing that's pretty well known. I really liked the idea of being able to create my own character and take him into this world. I'd seen a couple of the earlier MMOs, like you said, EverQuest. WoW launched at in the same year as COH. I believe a few months after.
They were relatively
Yeah,
close.
they were
I
very
remember
close.
that.
And I've never been big into the fantasy and the swords and the magic and elf ears and shit like that. Never really appealed to me. So being able to play in a modern city in a setting with heroes and everything like that really appealed to me. So yeah, that's why I started playing. Back to you, Adam. You ready? What were your first impressions of the game? You touched base on it, said that you didn't care for it a little bit, but why don't you go into it a little bit more, and then you can follow up, sir.
The controls to me were very confusing at first, and I remember every time I made a new character having to go into the options menu and mess around with it so I can actually have the camera not go all like tweaky on me at first.
I remember because you couldn't save your profiles or anything like that. Each character was independent.
Yes. And then the tutorial, I didn't know for the longest time that you could skip it, so I always had to do the tutorial. And I'd sometimes forget what I was doing, or I'd get sidetracked and just spend most of the time killing the zombies, I think it was. I think the zombies were infected or something.
They were druggies.
And killing them for a while, only to find out that there was actually a badge for it, but I never got that badge.
And you couldn't go back to it until, God, what was it, like past couple of years where they finally put in Ouroboros.
You can go back?
Yeah, Ouroboros allowed you to like go back and redo it, but it was like until then you had no way. Once you removed your character from there, that was it.
Yeah. What about you?
Honestly, I don't remember too much because I remember being at your place and it's like the main thing that stuck was all I can remember was like spending hours and hours trying to find out what I wanted to play, and I think I made like 20 different characters like that first night you showed me. And that's all I can remember of it.
I made a lot of alts too.
It wasn't alts. I actually made the character and deleted them. Remember, your account didn't have many spaces, so I only had a few.
Yeah.
And I like made a character, deleted, made, delete, made, delete. And I spent like hours doing that, trying to find out what I wanted.
That was actually my next point. Is thoughts on the character creator. For me, it was the first, and this kind of ties into my first impression. It's the first game besides something like a WWE wrestling game, which wasn't that advanced at the time, that you could actually sit down and customize your character in such a way. With a couple of other MMOs that I had seen and tried, you kind of picked your character, picked what you were, and you were like a default generic
One
look.
of 5.
Yeah, and went out into the world, and you looked just like everybody else. And animations were same as everybody else. And that's something that we'll get into a little bit more, where you can have the same type of character, but play them in a completely different style. Because that's something that we did throughout the course of play. I absolutely enjoyed the customization. I don't even think that I started playing the character for like 3 hours. I just kept going back and forth and going through everything and playing with the different options. And that was actually my first impression, was just like, holy hell, I'm not even playing the game yet, and I'm sitting here doing all this, and I can't make up my mind. I can't decide. I don't know what any of this means. It's all brand new and shiny and fun. So that was my first impression. Again, like I said, I don't think it was. It might have been like 6 a.m. by the time I finally started the tutorial. Which again, you did not have badges at that point. They were not implemented into the game yet. They may have had some exploration ones. I don't recall exactly because again, like I said, put it out there on Front Street. City of Heroes is in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most free expansions for a video game ever released. And they would consistently update with new content at least a minimum of twice a year as the game was coming out.
To fix things.
So again, trying to track all this, I could cheat and pull up the wiki and name off everything. But I'd rather, this is kind of a nostalgia thing, I'd rather go off of what I remember. So yeah, like I said, I don't even think I started playing for the first 6 hours because I think I installed it and got my account running just a little bit before midnight. So I literally spent all of Christmas morning sitting there, like, trying to be quiet, in the living room, which is where the computer was, trying to create my character, going, holy shit, look at this is cool. And that kind of brings us to the next point. And this is where you tend to get hung up a lot, sir. With, you were able to create some characters and stuff, but you had a big issue with getting a character past the initial levels, 1 to 10, where you're learning your character and learning the style and learning how to play them and what it takes to be this character. You never really were able to go too far with that, Adam.
No, I wasn't.
I remember for me, the first 10 levels was awesome. You fought, I think, the first major bad guy that you meet, depending on which arc you go. And that was another thing. You had an option of who you talked to and what missions you got. Was Frostfire for me. Yeah, Frostfire. He was, I believe, the leader of the... It wasn't the Trolls.
Hellfires? Or Hellions.
The Hellions, yeah. And that guy sucked. I hated trying to fight that guy.
Couldn't you also fly?
Yeah, he would hover.
He froze you. He burned the crap out of you, and
yeah, and I remember first going into the Hollows, which is a zone, an overworld zone, where there was like, it wasn't an earthquake, but they were digging and it created like a giant crater and going down into it, into the cave where this guy was. And it was just, you start off in Atlas Park, or Galaxy, which is now gone.
Which I never, ever, in the entire time of playing that game, have created a character and started in Galaxy City.
I did.
Once,
yeah. Atlas Park was like the main hub of the world. It's where everybody met up at, was Atlas. And I remember venturing out of Atlas for the first time into the Hollows and just seeing the contrast in the art design and the look and the feel completely shifted. Atlas felt safe, especially for a low-level character. There were some bad guys on the outskirts of the park and the city hall. You could find some higher-level guys, but you could always run back to the safety of the Atlas statue, if you would. Once you got to the Hollows, and like as soon as you walk in, there's literally like a cop standing at a barricade shooting a shotgun, and there's just waves of guys coming over a wall, and I was like, holy shit. So I believe for me, if I'm remembering correctly, my first major arc and what led me through, probably not the entire first 1 to 10, but was the Frostfire story arc. And I remember sitting there playing it and going, I can't beat this guy. I'm doing something wrong. I don't understand. I'm not grasping it. And that was, again, my first experience with an MMO where I just wasn't at the right level. I didn't grind enough. So why don't you talk about it a little bit? Tell us why you have such an issue with 1 to 10 with those starting levels.
Well, my main thing is you guys like to play, at the time, you guys like to play heroes. That's when your high-level characters are on, or the hero side. Or at least for yours was, Jason. And my character was a villain, which was a mastermind who took like necromancy and pain domination. And at that point in time, I remember we couldn't play together because we were on the 2 separate factions. We could only do like the PvP, which we kind of never really did. So it was just us dueling each other. But every time I make a new character, I suck at the character creation because I always make them anorexic and like
pink and purple.
I like purple, not the pink part. I like purple, but it's when I'm playing the character. If I'm not having fun within the first couple of minutes of it, I just lose interest in it, and that's I think what my problem was. Is like I'd create the character, try to come up with a cool backstory when I'm playing for it, and then just kind of like, this is boring.
Yeah, but you're not going to get the flashy stuff like right at level 1. It was like that in WoW, and it was just like that in Guild Wars. The flashy stuff comes later after you do the work.
City of Heroes / Villains is a game for me, just like for EVE Online. I like it. I like the idea. I like the concept, but I could never get into it. I could never sink my teeth deep enough into it to play it.
I think one of the problems for you is you were always very much a support character with no direction, if you will. And what I mean by that is with the team dynamic that we tried to have.
There was no team dynamic.
There was.
You were self-efficient. He was self-efficient. You guys would go in the mission and just go. Okay, Andy goes left. I go right, and you guys do that. I just do.
Well, hold on. Let me elaborate a little bit. Adam always liked to be crowd control, and by the time that he could actually do what his character was meant to do, there was like 2 enemies left, and we just kind of let him do it just for fun. Not being me. Okay. Adam actually did have a level 50 character that he broke horribly. Which
broke?
we will talk
you
about
guys
later.
broke.
We'll talk about a little bit later. I don't want to jump too far ahead. Andy, first couple of levels. I know later on in the life of the game, and once you became acclimated with it, you kind of breezed past the first 25 levels for you. You were able to kind of power level yourself in regards. You knew kind of where to go and what to do.
Yeah.
But can you remember back to that first time when you played through and you were experiencing the content for the first time, that 1 to 10?
I remember, like, actually before I made Dro, I did a blaster because that was supposed to be my first character. I wanted something to be heavy damage. I remember just basically he was like soldier with a beret and a trench coat, and he went assault rifle, and it's like it was interesting for a little while. And
you'll have to excuse the noise in the background. My dog is literally laying in the corner chewing on a dog bone. So sorry if some background noise picks up, but that's the only way to keep his big dumb ass kind of entertained while we do this. Anyways, sorry to interrupt. Go right ahead. So you had a blaster with a trench coat and an assault rifle. Remember what his name was?
Back then, no.
No?
That was even like before I had like my own names that I use now.
Because I mean, I know I haven't stated it yet, but I actually still have my original tune that I created. He's evolved drastically over the years, but that first character that I made on Christmas Eve, I still have, and he's still my main character that I used.
Yeah, it took me a while because it was like I was just dying way too much, and that was also back. God, what was it? Since then they changed blasters like 3 times.
Yeah.
With their innate effects, but after that, I think I was talking a little bit more with you on that, and we got into like scrappers being like the melee type. So it's like, all right, I'll try that.
Or as Adam always liked to put it, melee. Melee.
The Smash Bros stuff from before.
I was gonna say Smash Bros. That's why
Smash
it's
Bros.
Smash Bros.
Smash
That's what it
Bros.
was. Smash Bros.
Smash Brawls.
But that was also around the time I found out about that Dragon Head.
Yeah. Under the monster heads. Yeah. I know you had probably the most created characters out of all of us. Do you know
Oh, no.
how many? No, that he kept.
Oh, kept?
Okay.
Yes.
Do you know how many active characters to date that you have?
You mean active, like how many are in my character? Something like
Yes.
this? Was it like 14 per page? 14, 17? 16 to 17, I want to say.
Okay,
And
because
one
I
of
know
them's a joke.
you ventured onto different servers. I kind of stayed on my home server again.
No,
where
that's
I-
all justice.
Was that all just? But regardless, you still delved into a couple of different servers.
I wanted to
try
see the
them out.
stuff about how like Virtue was supposedly like egotistical children.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see that. And I,
Sorry to any people out there that may at one point listen to this and hear him call Virtue egotistical, but you know what? We're all from justice, so suck it.
Yet again, it was off forums, so I wanted to see it for myself. But I wanted to see it. I think I got that character to 3. It's like I miss my money and all the work I already put out, so it's like screw that. I think I might have done the same with what was the other one? Virtue and I can't remember.
Did you go to champion?
Maybe, but I had no characters like higher than 3. I think. At
I
best.
do want to pause for just a few seconds and let anybody who bothers to listen to this know this entire discussion is going to be about City of Heroes, and I do apologize if you don't know anything about City of Heroes. You may learn something, but there's going to be a lot of terms and a lot of verbiage that you're not going to understand and not going to get. But that's just what we do. That's what we're going to do on this one. It's completely 100% about that. On topic, because again, like I said before, the game is coming to an end in
Like 10 days.
in like 10 days. So this is kind of our swan song. This is our way of saying goodbye to it. Well,
No,
you've
the
been
Dark
giving me
Forge.
weird looks, Adam. Why? Because I used big words that you couldn't comprehend.
No, you said Swan Song.
Yeah.
I thought for a second, I thought you're some type of Chinese food.
Yes. Cream of some young man. Adam's favorite food.
That actually sounded good.
All right, Andy. First task force, strike force, or raid. Do you remember what the first one that you did was?
I think my guy was 50 before I even touched any of them.
Yes, you were very solo heavy. I had to literally drag you kicking and screaming into any of these things that we did. But do you recall what your first one was?
Sadly, no, because that was what, like, I want to say like 4 or 5 years ago. And yeah, too many even back then to try and think of it.
How about you, sir?
Was that particle guy?
Particle.
Synopsis? The guy who could run fast?
No, he had like a power suit. With the
Positron.
I think that was my first one I did with
Posi-
you guys.
Posi back in the day was split into two.
Yeah.
Two separate task force.
And they revamped it.
Did they revamp it into 2 or was it 1 back then?
It might have been
Jeez,
one
I
of the
can't
2,
remember.
and then I think
It was
they changed
long.
each of them.
It was long. My first task force was the Manticore task force, which was located in Brickstown. Manticore was the equivalent of Batman in the City of Heroes universe. He was the only character without any special abilities or powers. And I had absolutely no clue what in the hell I was doing. I don't think I was able to... You had to be like 30-something. So it was high up there before I actually experienced the first one. And people, like, I got a random message, hey, you want to join a task force? And I was like, sure. I don't know what the hell that is, but why not? Let's go do it. For all I know, we could have ended up in Pocket D dancing. Pocket D is a nightclub. What else was there? I know I did a Terra Volta, which was a respect mission very
You've done
early
like all of
on.
them because you had the badges.
Yeah,
for them. I might help you with some of them later
I've
on.
done every single task force and every single raid, every single, with exception of the
Cathedral.
stuff in the Cathedral of Pain. And the only, besides the Cathedral, the only one that I have not completed, which really eats away at me, that I can't complete it because the game is shutting down. When they announced I was a premium player, which means I had locked content, so I don't have access to my incarnate abilities. It's basically like I hit level 50. It's anything beyond 50, and it was the Tyrant Task Force that I what did they call it? What was the name?
Magister? No, was it Magister?
No, I did that one.
I don't remember.
It's when you defeat Tyrant in.
I thought you and I were doing that one.
But we didn't finish it. He beat us.
Crap,
The
that
last
was with
time,
Naz.
the last time I played City of Heroes, and I haven't been on since they announced the game was closing. I've been waiting.
Why don't you guys try and do it?
Because
I can't.
you can't get like 20
it's-
people to do it.
But that and it's locked out for me because I'm not an incarnate, so I can't do it.
The problem was they tried to switch everybody's account over to VIP because the whole freedom thing, the free accounts and stuff like that. If you had a free account, you couldn't do the incarnate stuff. Duh. So our accounts lapsed, and then like a day later or whatever, they had the whole thing. Well, your account has been frozen in that state.
Yeah, so
they
I'm
tried to
frozen
get
in
everybody
that, yeah.
VIP, but
You
with
need to be
everything,
incarnate to do it.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
there's
we have-
one, and I played it, and we've made it all the way to the end, but we just were unable to beat the final boss, and so that's the only one. That and Cathedral of Pain, which was down at the time. They hadn't, or had they put up the new cathedral?
I don't know.
Either way, there's literally 2 out of like 50 that I was not able to finish in the course of 8 years.
I think Cathedral and like maybe a couple. What was that? The floating island. I want to say like a nether area, but I can't think of it now. Got through there through Peregrine. It was like a red zone or
I know
something.
where you're talking about. I can't think of the name of it. I can picture everything. Anyways, we look like idiots because we don't know.
You
Yeah,
guys look
okay.
like idiots. I haven't understood a word you guys have said since you started on
Big
this.
surprise.
Yeah, you just got dragged around zone to zone.
Yeah, power level.
Whee!
All right, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's one thing I remember is being in that weird city with the that looked like Italy kind of. It's got all the canals and the bridges.
Oh,
that would be
Founders
Venice,
Founders Falls.
and it's Founders Falls.
I remember
God,
you
that
taking
place
me
with
there
snipers.
and trying to get to a door, and I remember dying and going, "What just happened? Why did I die?"
Yeah, you look up. There's like military grade snipers that'll just one shot you all day.
Well, yeah, that's when you had to sidekick people to you before they had
Oh
super
yeah, and it was like
sidekicking
one
for
to
the group.
person.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
I'm going to start this one off with you because I feel, Adam, that you may have some negative comments to say on it. Kind of ties into the level 1 to 10 talk, the discussion we had. Leveling up. How was your experience in City of Heroes with leveling up? And feel free, we did metagame a bit. We power leveled Adam a couple of times, things like that. I was power leveled with a couple of my alts.
all worked.
But we're going to focus solely on not the farming aspect of it, but you can talk about it a little bit.
The only character I was able to do anything solo with was my mastermind, because he was able to actually see. I enjoyed my mastermind until 50. Then I felt like the minions that I had were just too weak to really do anything, and they'd die off, and I was just healing everybody then. The archetypes or class that I liked playing was the support type.
Yeah.
Well, if you didn't have a group, you couldn't really solo at lower levels, and if you did, it would take you like 20 minutes to level up unless I had you guys around, which then I wouldn't learn the class because I'd be like level 20 in like
Just
2
like,
hours.
look at my new power, watch this. Pitoom! It misses.
I remember doing that one time when I got Flash, I think it was, it was Flash. I remember I was like, let me pull the next group, and I ran up and I was like,
Giant flashbang and miss.
Yes, everything missed. I was like, oh. To me, it was just I felt leveling was a little slow for
Okay.
at least for support champions, unless you had a group. And half the time when I'd be playing, I don't want a group with random people that just ran through everything.
What about comparative? I'll ask you the same question, Andy. I don't really have a lot of experience with it, but comparative to other MMOs, how was the leveling system? How was the grind?
I felt City of Heroes, at least the beginning levels, was slower than any of the MMOs that I've played, except maybe the EverQuest,
Okay.
which I barely remember now. But mainly because you got you chose what your powers were, and when you played support, you could sometimes take a support build at level 1 and be able to do minimal damage to the enemy, which sometimes would out heal at times.
Okay.
So I felt it was slower than some other MMOs that I had played. Not as slow as Eve, though.
Now, in the flip side, though, did with it being kind of a slower progression, did you stop and appreciate any of the story aspects a little bit more?
I never read anything.
Oh, fair enough. fair enough.
I did not read
And some
anything.
people, you could do that. You didn't have to follow the lore and the story and what was going on, the bigger picture. It was just kind of like, oh, there's a thing, I'm going to go punch it.
Yes. That's
Or in your case, I'm going to go miss.
Or confused. Confused. I remember taking confused, the biggest like controversy power ever in that game. Confused.
Yeah, because when you confused somebody, they worked for you to attack an enemy.
And it lowered the XP.
Yeah, you got no XP from it. Got no XP from it. An enemy NPC killing another enemy NPC.
Yeah.
Okay. You, sir, leveling.
I know with Dro, I didn't do any of the mission arcs. I
Really?
did newspapers.
Okay.
I think maybe I did a couple
Well,
of the
wait,
tutorial
with
ones.
with Dro
One did-
Droganus?
Yeah.
No, not possible. Newspaper missions didn't come into play at that point. You were already.
And I
you,
was-
you beat me to 50 on your original tune.
I remember that.
Yeah, you beat me to 50. So there was no way the newspaper missions were not implemented at that point. Villain side had them, the newspaper missions, but the hero side you did not have the police scanner yet.
Yeah, I must not have paid too much attention to some of the stories.
Okay.
Because I do remember doing like the Frostfire one because I spent like an hour just sliding around on the ice. That
Yeah.
was so much fun.
Yeah.
For those who are wondering, since he was like part fire, part frost, he froze parts of the level, and
Yeah,
your
his-
character would ice skate around.
Yeah, his like layer, if you will, was literally like a sheet of ice on the ground. What about other characters? Some of your alts and stuff. How was leveling them up? What-
Once I knew like mechanics of the game, it got a bit easier to understand. I know I did more of the stories with some of them. Some of the later arcs though that came out were a lot more interesting. So-
Sure. What about? What about? I was gonna ask a question in regards to it. What was the quickest character that you were able to level up from 1 to 50?
Probably Tanker.
Okay.
Yeah,
How long?
definitely him.
If you had to guess.
Time frame wise, I think I spent like maybe less than a week.
Okay.
But I will say that was partially because of AE, I think. Pretty sure. No, that was actually Rifty.
Before we jump into the next point that I have here, I actually to tell a little quick tale. I actually took about a 1.5 year break from City of Heroes. I was like, screw this game. It's stupid. What do you mean I have to pay every month? Kind of mentality with it. Because again, it was my first MMO. I'm like, what the hell? You know, I mean, I wasn't naive or ignorant to the concept, but I was just kind of over it at one point. Like, I have to pay for shit? This is dumb. I moved out of state. It was kind of, you know, in not necessarily like a bad place, but just like, I would say almost like a lonely state, and went back to the game. And that kind of kept me entertained and kept me busy. And that's what, when I came back and met you two gentlemen, why I was doing nothing but talking about City of Heroes and how awesome it was. And in turn probably pulled you back into the game in a sense, which brought him in. Biggest mistake ever. No.
My computer hard drive might say so.
Another
Just jealous that you
point.
beat him to 50.
I believe it was at level 10 that the content was originally unlocked. The ability to create a supergroup. What a supergroup was is essentially any person who plays an MMO or anything like that, you know it as a guild or a team. The difference is City of Heroes, and it wasn't original. It came in a later update, but it was there by the time I hit 10. Was the ability to create your own supergroup base. It was kind of an area where they dropped the ball with the game a little bit, but I still thoroughly enjoyed the building aspect and kind of decorating it and having a place to put my shit that I got and everything. So for me, it was a completely a different portion of the game where, again, just like the character creator, I could sit there and invest hours into just figuring out how I want this room to connect and what do I want there, and okay, I have limited resources to do with this. So it was a whole nother subgenre of this aspect. And then when I was done with it, because I'd put walls up and wouldn't let you guys see shit that I was working on and everything.
Tried
I'd
to
block
hide
it.
something.
Yeah, I had Easter eggs. I had like picture of Recluse hiding behind a banner and stuff, which I believe is still there.
It is.
That was one of my favorite parts of the game. It had absolutely next to zero use besides just a generic place to store your crafting enhancements.
But I mean, it was a customizable home.
Exactly. For me, it was exactly that. Your thoughts on it, Adam?
I think our villain one got more use than our.
Yeah, it's because you guys all flipped on me and went villains, and I was like,
because
I am the hero.
Yeah, but that was also before you could switch.
Yeah.
my thing was because that's what my first 50 was a villain.
Yeah.
That's what I couldn't play
I
a guy with
hated you
necromancy.
guys when you were playing villains. By the way, I was like, "Fuck you guys." You
You're
stay
the one
there.
that gave me villains.
Yeah, shut up. We don't talk about that, or how I got a year and a half of the game for free. Time of the game for free. Anyway,
I felt maybe if we would have actually found a way to use the base what it was actually meant for, like with the rating of that, I might have enjoyed it a little more. I hated going into the base because sometimes you would rearrange that base like every other week.
Yeah.
And I'd go in and be like, where did he put the teleporter?
No, you'd go in and like the entire base would be flickering because he's moving objects all
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
It's like,
That
what's going
was
on?
annoying
What's
because you
going
made me
on?
fall through the floor a couple times.
Yeah, I purposely try to trap Andy in with this. Yeah.
Forever.
Well, another aspect is Andy always made the biggest, like tall, height-wise, model character that you could. So I'm like, I'm going to see what kind of shit I can get him stuck in. Because my guy was average size. Your guy was skinny and emo
That's short, but
and
average.
sickly looking. He was always sickly looking. Okay?
Always gaunt.
Yeah. Gaunt. Man,
Gaunt, not daunt.
Whatever. He was fucking disgusting. Disgusting.
I didn't like.
Blech.
I didn't. They made the characters look too buff. So
And
I
of
wanted-
course, leave it to Adam to find a way to put skinny jeans on a superhero, an anorexic superhero who just likes the color purple.
Who was that?
What?
Who was that? No, what character was that?
All of
They had
them.
a couple of them like that.
All
dude.
of them.
Laughing Mantis had like the
Latex.
Yeah, that guy looked like the goal of him when I helped Adam design the character, and that's another big thing that I really enjoyed doing was helping create costumes. Even though Andy hated every costume I ever created for him, he is also the reason that I bought the wedding pack, just so I could stick a dragon head on a chick with a wedding dress, just to piss him off. And I think it worked, just a little bit.
Your
Just a
costume
little
idea
bit.
did win me a.
Yes, I designed a costume for Adam, and I think he won $1 million influence, which
I
was
watched.
currency in the game. And I was like, "Where's my fucking cut, you bastard?" But that's another aspect of it. You were able to go back and unlock extra costume slots, and I know for me. I had one particular design, which, again, for my character, and again, I've invested 8 years, I had a complete backstory in my mind, which I still do to this day. I know why his costume looks that way, and his story, and all this stuff. And then I made the street clothes version, which I believe you
Wait.
always said looked like me. I apparently made my character look like
little
me.
bit, yeah.
Okay, with like claw hands and shit. Like he had, yeah.
I just remember the
trench coat.
Spidey shirt.
Now, yes, I managed to cheat the system and in a game that had no references to DC or Marvel, make it look like my guy had a Spider-Man t-shirt on. Go ahead.
Didn't a lot of people also get their characters banned for like trying to make actual superheroes?
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
existed?
but then you turn around, you look at their name, it's like Hunk of Day or something.
Yeah,
and it's
but
a Hulk.
also, but yeah, when you make a character called Logan is the Weapon X, okay, and your claws regen, and you have the hair and the cigar in your mouth, of course they're gonna be like, stop
Well, no,
it.
I mean they went like full on like original Wolverine, X-Men Wolverine outfits.
Yes, they weren't banned. You could always do that. I actually one of my first villains because I made a bet with my friend Dave, who played on and off occasionally. He goes, "So you're telling me that you can make like anyone in this game?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Bullshit." I'm like, "All right, name somebody who's not a superhero and I'll make him." First thing out of his mouth was Rowdy Roddy Piper. Done. I made fucking Rowdy Piper in that game, and you saw him.
I saw him too.
Had the kilt, the shirt, the jacket, right? And he was
Weird, crazy face.
yeah, and it looked just like him. And Dave's like, "Holy shit!" And anyways, we're veering and we're reminiscing, and that's fine and dandy. But I do want to shoot it over to you for super groups and the bases, and maybe what that team aspect meant to you a little bit, if anything at all.
You know me in teams, that's not always something that works.
But with the super group that I made, I always kept it to people that I knew and trusted with being able to access the shit that I had.
I had the most characters in it.
Yeah.
That's not exactly something to brag about.
Yeah. I also kicked the most characters out of it of yours. I remember when I created the super group, which was called the New Nation, picked the logo and everything. I started teaming with this guy who had a very similar build to me. His character kind of looked like me. He kind of mentored me. He was a little bit ahead of me. His name in the game was Le Mal. Okay. He joined the group for a while. When I stopped playing, obviously I lost contact with him. Just recently, I believe last year, I never removed him from my friends list. Kept him there. And never really saw him again, ever. He popped up a year ago. And he's like, holy shit, dude, I haven't talked to you in like 5 years. And it was like finding an old friend, like a friend from like grade school or high school that you haven't seen. And you're like, oh my God, how have you been? And he's like, I live in Alaska. I'm like, sweet, we want to go do something? And we went and did a mission. It was really cool. It was really interesting. But yeah, there was a lot of people that came and went from our super group. There were some internal disputes. We could have literally written our own comic book based on the shit that was going on with our characters, in my opinion. Some power struggles and stuff amongst the higher ups in their group and whatnot. Adam's looking at me like, what?
What the hell did I miss?
You were a peon, so it didn't matter. You were just filler.
Cannon fodder.
Yeah. But for me, it was really interesting because, again, being my first MMO experience, I had played some shooters online and been in a group and everything, but there was no real central location where everybody, you can gather in one of the main zones and kind of hang out and everything, but this was ours. Nobody else could enter it. Nobody else, could ever really see it unless we wanted them to, and it was really cool. And that was like my favorite part of being in the supergroup is like we have our own little hideout. And I don't know. I think they just did it in WoW now. I'm not sure, but now you can like rent a hall or something or some shit like that.
That's been Guild Wars where you have a hall, but it was basic. It
Okay.
was like one of 4 maps or
Which
something.
again, Guild Wars, another NCSoft game, stole from City of Heroes. Anyways, but again, for me, it was my first experience of doing that. City of Heroes predates Guild Wars.
It does?
Yes.
The part that always got my attention, I wish we never. I actually wanted to actually try it sometime. The human punt ball game.
Repel Ball.
Yeah.
Repel Ball, which
I wanted to see
which
that
they
so
just
much.
you were able to do again.
Yeah, I know.
They just put it back into the game.
I remember
It's kind of
Repel.
like what's the game in Halo that you can play similar to that? Nerf Ball or something like
I
that.
haven't played anything other than Team Slayer and Halo.
There's custom games you can do.
Yeah, but this was like predating back to Halo 1. People had figured out how to do it.
I think I know what you're talking
yeah,
about. I
like,
can think of it, but not
you're
the
punting
terminology.
people with the warthogs or some shit. I don't know. Either way, there was a little game kind of that the community built within City of Heroes, like a sporting event called Repel Ball. You using a mastermind what was the other one that was able to spawn decoys?
The controllers or dominators, I think it was.
You were able to
Controllers.
summon an NPC inside of your base, and then by activating Repel, you were able to move them, like knock them around a little bit. And so people would set up goalposts, and it's essentially soccer. You're playing Repel back and forth, punting an NPC back and forth between.
Didn't work on your friends.
You had one person who wasn't in the group
Oh, okay.
invited in as the referee, and he'd be the one to spawn the ball, and then you had 2 teams punt them back and forth.
Yeah.
I think that
Actually, currently in the base, there is an empty room which I was designing Repel Ball
Yeah, I
for.
remember that.
Yeah,
I just remember Repel and you guys not liking it.
yeah. Which I took at a...
Okay, but when you're shoving people into the ceiling, that's a different story.
Yeah, getting things stuck.
That was the point. I
Now
went
when you
bowling.
couldn't hit them and the mission was kill all.
Yeah.
Details.
Which I took on a later character and completely did it the right way, unlike him, on my dual pistol Corruptor. So anything that got within melee range, I just activated my repel, and all of a sudden they were back in gun range. That's how you do it, biatch.
I was using it for bowling.
Yeah. All right. We kind of talked about it. We'll be able to talk about it a little bit more here now. High-end content. Now, I'm predating Going Rogue and predating Freedom and Incarnates and things like that. This is you were talking about with your villain.
Yes.
Once you got to the high level, what's your experience with the original high level content? Again, don't count Going Rogue, and you didn't really delve into Freedom too much at that point. You were more of a casual player at that point.
I just remember doing groups with you guys, like with Rick D, I think. Does that count as endgame?
Yeah,
Right.
the Rick D
Mothership.
stuff was the Mothership.
Well, I never did
raids
the
and things
mothership. I
like-
just remember doing those missions with you guys, and I just remember my minions. Like as soon as we would spawn and get the first group, they'd be dead,
Yeah.
and everything's still on cooldown. I'd just be like, "What
And
the fuck?"
at that
Fine,
point,
heal,
you
heal,
were 50,
heal.
correct?
Yes,
Okay.
which thanks to Andy.
Did
Got me
you
most of the way.
did your first character, was he power leveled, or did you actually?
At the
Like-
time, me and Andy played, and then they had that thing. At the beginning, you could like before level 5, you guys could split
Level
things.
pack?
Yes, the level pack. Me and Andy did that.
I'd say about 50-50 on that.
Okay.
both
And
parts.
then, though, at later levels, we found out that it was actually slowing you down dramatically.
Yes.
So Andy quit the level pack, I think, somewhere in the 40s. And then I got to 50. I think I got to 50 doing some random mission.
Yeah, I remember I went batshit crazy because Andy beat me to 50 on our original tunes. So then once I hit 50, I unlocked my epic character, which was the Chaldeans. I made a war shade, and I was bound and determined to get that war shade to 50 within a month. I think I gave myself.
It was something.
And all I did was hunting street missions with him. I didn't do. I mean, I know we teamed up a couple of times, but I did none of my arcs with that character, and did it and made my goal. And the funny kind of segue into that, and I just realized it. It's the same thing I did with Gage in Borderlands 2. Once I finished my main character, I started my next one. Didn't do any of the side quests, just stuck to the main stuff to power my way through it.
Yeah, that's what I've done with like all my alts. I usually have like my first character try and do everything.
Yeah.
It's like afterwards you don't want to do like half that stuff.
Yeah,
again.
I was like, I don't even know on my main character Valo. They implemented, and it became a bigger thing, equivalent to achievements and trophies on Xbox and PS3, was the badges. I became absolutely obsessed with the badges. And again, it was stuff that was relevant to the game. Like, I was able to experience more of it because of the badges. And I'm not just talking about the exploration and the history stuff, but the fighting the different enemy classes that I kind of had to go out of my way to find and to experience is why I got into them so much. I think I finished up, I think I'm 900 and something badges.
You were somewhere high up there. I know you didn't break the 4 digits.
Yeah, I'm very close. Unfortunately, it's another one of my goals that I'm not going to be able to accomplish because I don't want to go back to I will be there, and we'll talk about it again a little bit later when the final day or days, I'll be there. But I don't want to go in there and do content and continue to advance my character just to see it go poof. But I digress. We will go on that a little bit later. High level content for you, Sir Andy.
I think my high level content before the whole enhancement system was in place was actually just going back lower level to like help you guys or
Yeah.
help other random people.
Fuck you, man. Go back to help me. No. I know.
Alts. We all had our alts.
Yeah.
God knows it. I mean, it's like that was the
many alts.
Oh, shut it. But I mean, like, that was it. And then, once the enhancements came into play, that was my end game forever.
Well, we talked about it. I believe it was, like I said, 2005 or 2006 that Villains launched. And they kept it separate with exception of a few zones that you were able to have cross-content and some special holiday events and things like that. But then I believe it was 2010 when one of the biggest game changers to City of Heroes came out, and that was Going Rogue.
Only paid expansion.
Technically, yes. Because at a point, Villains was considered a sister game to City of Heroes that you could, on some levels, interact. And that's actually when the bases were implemented, was in Villains. I remember now.
Yeah. That sounds right.
But with Going Rogue came the ability to change your hero to villain and all the way back with a step in between. Brought in a whole nother alternate dimension that you're able to access, Praetoria. Whole new level 1 to 20 missions for your character.
Those were their own issue.
We'll talk about them in a second. I'm just kind of summarizing. And brought in a whole nother group of that they were there before, but now they were predominant villains with Tyrant and people like that, the Praetorians, and their whole story kind of brought into play. For me, I had beta access to Going Rogue, and I remember sitting there and talking to you guys as I was installing it. I remember, and to this day, currently on my Facebook page is the picture that I took. Is I literally did everything that I could to get Valo, my hero, to villain status, because before you were able to do this, Valo was, to me, he was an anti-hero. That's how I kept him. So he was, a good guy who went far beyond and what was justifiable, whatever. So the picture that I took and I sent to these guys is in Granville, there's a giant golden Lord Recluse statue. So the one screenshot that I've taken from the game is Valo, my main character, with his old costume, because it was on beta and I still had access to his original costume, standing with his arms folded in the same pose underneath the Recluse statue. And I was so excited, and I think that was the first time that you guys were like, "Fuck you, beta." Even though I didn't have a non-disclosure agreement or anything, I was feeding them you guys information on everything that was coming for it. Initial thoughts on Going Rogue, because that was kind of a turning point for you for the game, where I would say that you kind of veered off from it due to not necessarily lack of interest, but other MMOs and things coming into play. But what was Going Rogue for you, Adam?
I tried Praetoria. I thought, because that's also when it came up with those 2 new power sets, I believe. It was dual pistols and kinetics.
Electric control, the demon summoning,
and
kinetic melee.
Melee. I just remember Praetoria, to me, it seemed harder and slower.
Yes. Yeah. I think they were trying to focus a little bit more on the story aspect of it, and they kind of had to slow down and throttle your leveling ability to get you to experience that story.
Some of those missions, though, that you did were hard.
They were ridiculous, yes, especially if you did it solo.
Yeah, exactly.
Even in groups, some of them were just out.
Well, that's another thing, is when Going Rogue went live, I instantly made Valo, I brought him full circle from hero to villain, back to hero, and then to vigilante, which allowed him access to all areas. And anytime these guys got stuck, I'd make my way over to Praetoria through the portals and whatnot, and all of a sudden Valo would pop up, and to me it was like, I'm coming to save the day. I'm coming to help out the group. I will help you, younglings, kind of deal.
That's another thing that drove me until level 20, you couldn't leave Praetoria.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was less like, oh, well, you guys are going to go do this stuff. I can't come do that because I'm in Praetoria.
You could leave it.
You could?
Yeah.
Oh.
You could go for certain aspects. You were able to access Pocket D and do different content.
I was not aware.
You weren't able to go into Paragon City or the Rogue Isles, but you were technically able to experience certain aspects.
Yeah, but from what I remember, it was just like go to Pocket D. You could do maybe the
Snaptooth.
events.
Yeah.
But I mean, those were also limited to seasonal.
Yeah. Again, it was just just clarifying. That's all. So, at that point, that was kind of, like I said...
Also, my game kept crashing with Praetoria. That's another reason I didn't like
yeah,
it.
that's-
Yeah, I had some problems with Praetoria on my old computer a little bit. With the Ultra mode that was shortly after, but they had implemented some new graphical textures and stuff,
Yeah,
and my
and that
computer
screwed up
didn't play well
everybody.
with it. For you, sir, going rogue experience.
Interesting. I like the idea of the new power sets they had, especially the dual pistols, because one of the old movie back from when I was in high school, I always liked an old movie called Equilibrium, which
Sand people.
Was the
Remember they got shot with sand?
Oh, yeah.
Equilibrium was supposed to be similar in style to The Matrix, done on a lower budget but a better movie, if I remember correctly.
I just remember it being like low budget, but it's like that whole gun kata stuff like caught my attention, and then it's like here's dual pistols, and they even state that they got some of their ideas from there. It's like, okay, I want to see this. So that, but it's like doing that in Praetoria with those extra hard mobs on a power set that doesn't hold up compared to like how the other power sets did. That just was a death sentence right there.
It was kind of underwhelming for me. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
That was a death sentence.
Along with going rogue, they announced for the longest time in the game, the level cap was 50. The level cap is still 50, but they announced incarnate abilities. The lore of the game was incarnate abilities were basically like god powers. The first one didn't roll out immediately, but they started to roll them out, and they were rolling them out all the way up until August 31st of this year, when they were beta testing the newest one, before NCSoft announced the closure of the game. But that brought a whole new dimension. I know, Adam, you didn't really get to experience it because at that point, again, Adam was more of a casual player. It's kind of like when he was bored, he'd jump on, knew we were there, and knew he could always come back and play with us when he wasn't off in some other fantasy world tying people up and spanking them and whatnot. Or, you know, Facebook stalking dudes on the internet. But for me, it afforded me the opportunity to, if you will, to compete on a friendly level with Andy. Andy had a distinct advantage over me with his character build. We were both dark melee, so we were both scrappers with dark melee. I went dark armor because at the time I was like, oh, well, I guess that's the obvious choice. Before I understood the mechanics of the game and knew it was what they classified as an exotic class, kind of difficult to play. Andy went with something difficult to play, but had, once you mastered it, afforded numerous perks and abilities. If you could figure out how to do it, you were pretty much the shit, okay? He was a regen character, and if I have to explain to you what regen is, you probably shouldn't be listening to this because you're not a comic book fan and you probably haven't played City of Heroes. So if you don't know what regeneration is, then fuck off. Not
There
really.
just went half your...
That's fine. Half of the 3 people that are going to listen to this very, very specific podcast here. Anyways, it allowed me a chance to kind of differentiate even further myself from him, but make up for some lost ground in a comparison against him. He was always the benchmark for me with his character. If we had the same attack, he always found a way to get his attack to do, even if it's like 35 more damage per second than mine. And that was just in the play style and the way that we built the characters. With the incarnate abilities, being the first one, Alpha, allowed me to catch up to him a little bit and in some regards, take no offense, exceed him with damage output. Granted, he was able to pick up and surpass me because he took a different direction with his Alpha. But for me, I was finally on. A scrapper is supposed to be damage. First and foremost. So now finally, I felt like I was on. It was a more of a level playing field for me.
Mm-hmm. Sorry to interrupt you. You brought up something to a point like the damage per second. Mm-hmm. To my knowledge, City of Heroes had no way of tracking the damage per second you did. There's like in World of Warcraft, you can get a damage meter, and people would watch that like a hawk.
Now, was that something that was implemented by the game, or was that made by an outside source?
It was made by an outside source. I
Okay.
didn't know if there was an add-on for City Heroes that did that.
There was City Tracker, which are Hero Stats, which I had.
There was that. I don't know how reliable what that was, but there was a test done in the game made by the community. That was how you figure that stuff out. Those pylons in the Rickety Warzone, you were supposed to go up to them, and then it was like, kill it, and then you do an equation. I don't remember the exact equation, but it was like killing the pylon and dividing by the time. That was your DPS.
I had, like I said, I had Hero Stats when I started to get like really into the game. I wasn't as much of a number cruncher as he was, but that's how I was able to watch what he was doing compared to what I was doing and know where I stood.
That showed group members?
No, but I was able to like determine from what you were able to tell me by doing your mathematical equation, compare it directly against the numbers that I was watching.
So there was like a damage meter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, just
to
not
my
as
knowledge, it
visible.
wasn't. That's what I was like. That's what.
Yeah.
Isn't it kind of like City of Heroes? Is it's based on what you could actually do in the game, other than
You could also-
well,
I mean,
Andy's
not
doing 30
necessarily-
damage and you're doing 20 damage.
Well, not necessarily DPS, but it did show the numbers appearing above the characters.
Oh,
When you would punch an enemy, you'd see the
Oh,
numbers.
so I'm talking about an actual DPS meter, because I know Andy in this World of Warcraft was glued to damage meters, and that's how they determined who was good. It's like, oh, well, I was first DPS in this, and I was doing this, and I was like,
Well, here's the other thing, though, with City of Heroes. Then World of Warcraft, you got things like, all right, they got defense, you'll just take less damage. But in, like, City of Heroes, mobs have very high vulnerabilities to certain things or very high resistances. And they're a lot more prominent than I've seen in, like, any other MMO.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, all right, you can go do, like, this is a false number, like 312 DPS onto, like, a pylon, but if you're going to go fight Rickety with, like, an electrical melee, you're only going to be doing, like, half your damage.
Yeah. So, for you, what did the Incarnates kind of bring to the table?
The ability to fill the holes that I had with him.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pronounced mostly because of being regen, you didn't get defense. And
Yeah.
God knows you knew I complained about that so much. But between the Incarnates and being able to switch over to villains and get like those epic pools, that filled that hole very fast.
That's with the Incarnates and going rogue was the point that I started to really become comfortable with my character. And I know that's really weird to say considering I had played him for so many years, but I was actually able to take my character, and because of being able to get the villain pools, all of a sudden my Scrapper had a sniper shot. My Scrapper had a way to temporarily, like, invulnerability in
win
regards. Exactly. So I started to branch that out, and as the Incarnates evolved, being able to summon pets and things like that, all of a sudden I went from being just a straight Scrapper to being, in some regards, a self-sustained jack of all trades. I had pets that, for me, were used as decoys for the most part. But I could sit back and pick people off. If I had to pull back, I could. I had my oh shit button. I had a way of kind of self-sustaining in a better regard for me.
Yeah, 'cause I
So that's
remember,
what
too,
it
it's
brought
like
for me.
Being dark, you always had that end issue. It's like, after 5 seconds of fighting, you can't fight no more.
Yeah,
And that's
you
how you
gotta-
fix that, you sacrifice something else.
Exactly, and at that point, it balanced me out better, and in the same regards, kind of opened the door for me to experiment more. I was able again to summon. I had the ability to summon 3 pets, 4 pets.
That's it. You had the 2 Incarnate, you had
And
your
my Widow.
Widow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm not going to count my veteran little. Well, he buffed me.
Nah, they're...
It was still fun.
Don't fight.
So yeah, I had that. I had my a couple of long range attacks, and I had a way to kind of, for a few moments, kind of tank in a regard, if you will. So it really allowed me to branch out and kind of break out of the mold of what the melee based Scrapper character was supposed to be. So that's kind of what it brought for me.
Yeah.
We have a mutual friend who, on and off, just like us, over time, played the game, left, came back. One of his big issues was, because of his circumstances, was kind of hard for him to maintain a subscription. So, fast forward to what, last year? Yeah, City of Heroes announces City of Heroes Freedom. They're going to a free-to-play hybrid of the game. It allowed new players to come in, which boosted their overall numbers as soon as they did it. Brought back several, at least for me, old players. So I know it did a lot. And allowed the people that had been loyal and maintained their subscription to kind of get some extra perks and be the VIPs and things like that.
Yeah.
Again, I do apologize, Adam. I know this is a little later in the life cycle of the game. You experienced the game earlier in the content, which will involve you again a little bit more. But I do want to touch base on it. What did Andy? What did you think of the freedom shift, if you will?
It was interesting. I was not always a fan of like those free to play, especially finding out that you had to be tier 7 just to keep your invention origins, which that time wasn't always easy to keep the subscription. So
Sure.
it's like here my character goes useless, and
Yeah,
but
in some aspects, I
Yeah.
get that.
but it was interesting to see like also too like the old people like you haven't seen in a while, they come back. You got new faces. God knows I definitely saw Atlas Park filled with a ton of newbies, whichever.
Most definitely.
And yeah, it was interesting to see the community and our server getting knocked up.
Yeah, and just the game overall in general kind of have a renaissance and a resurgence to an extent. Not that the game was dead in any regards, but it definitely brought a second wind to the game, if you will.
Yeah.
They didn't. They added the marketplace and a couple of other things like that, booster packs and different content, but it wasn't a drastic shift in content. They continued to build on what they started with going rogue.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say from the first portion of this? Any thoughts or opinions or anything?
The only thing I didn't like about Freedom is the fact that I think they locked
They
a few
did.
of
There
the, a
was
few of the
definitely-
a few of the classes. Those specifically like ones that I played, I couldn't play anymore. That's the only reason that drove me up a wall about Freedom. Is like, this is like my class that I play. I can't play it anymore.
No, I totally understand, and that was one of the gripes of our friend. He's like, okay, I can come back and play, but some of the stuff that I was working to, I can't access, and that kind of sucks. And I get that, but also I think the pros definitely outweighed the cons with it.
Yeah, because I mean, some of it you do understand. I mean, like the chat blocking that was to prevent like all the money spammers, and God knows we even saw an increase in them. The classes weren't too bad, but they did require a few months. I know you were somewhat short, and Naz was definitely, because that was like roughly the time he just started playing. But for the most part, I think they did a good job with it.
Most definitely. Oh, that's gonna bring us to our second group of topics here.
Save City Heroes.
You're gonna,
You were right.
And that is the opening comment.
yeah.
I'm going to say.
Sorry, we took a small break and tried to find a good point to cut, but of course Adam ruined it as usual.
Sure.
So our next little topic of discussion, I'm gonna throw this one to you, Adam, to start off.
Okay.
Favorite character builds. What I mean by that, your
Support.
your archetype, your origin, your class.
Controller,
Magic.
mind control.
Okay.
Support.
I think it might have been. Okay, what was it? I want to say like the psychic. Pew 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 pew.
Along with that, I know you're horrible with names. Favorite ability.
Confused.
Confused. Okay.
Because it's the only like hard, you could call it hard CC that actually could help slightly. It's okay. Well, we have that big monster guy. He might be cutting down the XP. He kills 1 or 2 minions, but if we clear the mobs quicker we clear the mobs, more XP per hour.
And see that, but that's also been a very big topic of discussion with any MMO. It's like, is it better to attack the boss and not worry about the ads, or try to clear the ads and then focus on the boss? It's a whole nother topic for a whole different show. Okay. I'm gonna go next because I think it's gonna be a little bit more in depth when we get to Andy here. For me, it has to be my main character, my first character, Valo Falcone. Dark Scrapper, dark armor, so dark melee, everything dark. The concept behind my character, his look was kind of like the villain in Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. For any of you cartoon and or Batman fans out there, infused with kind of like a Spawn kind of outfit. The whole Netherworld abilities and everything really appealed to me. And for me, it was just, it fit with kind of the image that I finally settled on and had in my head for my character, the anti-hero. Again, I wasn't trying to make Batman. That wasn't my goal. But I've always leaned more towards the darker, more meaningful. So that's where that came from for me. Interesting fact that I don't think I've ever shared. The reason that his name is Valo Falcone is the same time that came out, there was this movie made by Bam Margera called Haggard. The two main characters in Haggard, Bam's character is named Valo, after Villa Valo, the lead singer of him, and Brandon DiCamello's character is named Falcone. So I had like literally probably watched the movie a week before, and for whatever reason it popped into my head, and I always liked it put together, Valo Falcone. Even though everyone always ended up calling me Falcon, they kind of combined it. You know, or Falco was another one that I always got. But that's for me what it was. And ability wise, I would have to say it was... What was the floaty power I had? What was it called?
Soulstorm?
My Soulstorm.
I was going to say, you better mention that.
As a newer ability for my character, which I was actually able to float, what I called float. It was a control ability, basically a hold, that would levitate and spin lower level enemies. Well, I was actually able to do it. And even though they may have only come an inch off the ground, I was able to float some of the signature villains and giant monsters in the game. And I have witnesses to see them move. And every time it happened, I got a round of applause. And I was like, yes! Float, motherfucker! So that, and as much of a pain in the ass as the ability was, it was probably a mixture of Fly. Fly was it's purely a travel power. It really doesn't serve any other purpose other than that. It offers no buffs or anything like that. But being able to fly around a city, like you said before, Adam, really is one of the major things that appealed to me too. I remember when I got Hover, the precursor to Fly, and took like 3 minutes to float to the top of the Atlas statue. But as far as ability goes, I always have to go with what I always used as my main attack, whether you love it or hate it, with the activation times and the animation times, was always Shadow Ball. You'd throw a flurry of punches, and you'd have the shadow, and it'd make that noise.
It's like 5 different people blow out your speakers.
You could nail. It had a cone effect to it, but on the flip side, if you missed, you were fucked. And it took way too long to cycle that ability. But I'd have to say my number one is Shadow Ball. And on to you, sir. So, favorite character builds and favorite ability.
Favorite character build would have been Jiro with a natural dark melee regen.
Yeah, the dragon from another land in mech armor.
Every time when I created him, the only image I ever had in my head, it's I created him and it was back then we didn't have half those powers. So it was dark melee, fire melee, was it electric?
Uh-huh.
I don't even think we had broadsword back then or any of those, did we?
We had broadsword.
We didn't have
katana or anything like that.
That wasn't, yeah. So it's I don't want fire. I don't want some random sword weapon. It's I'm going to go dark melee. It's what do I choose next? It's I don't know this. I don't want to copy you. and it's like regen. Yeah, if a character lopped off my guy's head, I'd want it to go like right back and hi. So I went with that, and that became what he was. And then favorite powers, gag wise, it'd have to be Ash's that punch that just sent people off your screen. The greatest thing ever.
He would spend hours running around Atlas, the level ones, just watching, pew, flinging them. Oh, unbelievable. I'm gonna add a couple little in here because it triggers thoughts in my brain.
I just remembered my other favorite power.
Go ahead.
Propel.
I was wondering when you're gonna say that.
Least favorite ability.
Repel.
Repel? Was your least favorite?
Yes, because you guys would always bitch at me about it. Turn off Repel! Turn off Repel!
Kept jamming people and screwing up missions.
No, because you guys were melee characters, and I'd be like, boonk, boonk.
Besides the fact of any ability that punted an enemy away from me while I was trying to attack it, I'd have to say my least favorite power was Group Fly.
Oh,
because at a point there was no prompts.
No, group teleport.
Teleport, okay. Teleport was useful to some regards.
Now when you got people doing it, it's like, I'm just going to group port everybody over into this wall. And by the way, there's an AV just standing right here. I know you're resting, but I'm still going to do it. And it's like, oh, you frickin'...
I don't disagree, at least with group teleport, you had like that 2 seconds to kind of run. Okay, with group fly, you were stuck. Okay? It's no point to everyone flying at once.
Hey, it's
in
kind
a formation.
It's quite nice when you're a mastermind and you have your zombies flying next to you.
What about group run? Why wasn't there ever a group run? And goddamn it, City of Heroes, you never gave me my grapple gun / web slinging, you fucks. NCSoft, I'm gonna kill you.
The other power I
we
didn't
got
like was the
jetpacks.
new one they came out with the time control.
Okay.
The
Time manipulation.
Yes, the time manipulation. I think it's like the second ability you get. It's like an
that
aura
radio.
around you, but it's a constant swirl.
Yeah.
And it, if you didn't change the coloring of it, even when you did, if you had it on like all the time, like you should have probably when you were in group fights, it started giving me a headache.
Really? Yeah.
It was like some Twilight Zone swirl
Yeah.
effect that was on the ground. And
I remember with my Warshade, I had Orbiting Death. The
that was always cool.
The only reason I took the power is because it looked cool. It drained the shit out of my endurance. It really didn't serve any purpose for my build, but it looked fucking cool. Did you ever take any powers that look cool? By the way, I'm going to go on record here and call Andy out on this. Okay, because at one point I respected my character, rebuilt him, and I took super speed. And Andy swore up and down, left and right, that super speed was the most useless power ever. A week later, Andy had super speed in his build.
Super speed is useful for the fact that you don't gotta you can see where you're going, you don't gotta worry about flying into buildings, and you can run the streets and see where you're going.
Let me tell you, okay, Fly was the limousine of travel powers. What I mean by that, and I hate to steal a line from the late great Billy Mays, but you'd set it and forget it, okay? You turn on Fly, hit auto run, you can walk, fly to the top of the map, you'll be to wherever you gotta be by the time you come back from taking a piss or grabbing a soda or whatever, okay? You didn't have to do anything. There was no navigation, no, just, he's going. He's going. He went going.
Well, what powers were those? The veteran powers. You didn't even need to take a travel power anymore. I took sprint and that other speed buff one they gave you, and I was set for life.
Wait, I see it as
Ninja Run, that's what it was.
I still
Sprint
remember
Ninja
the time
Run.
because it's like I never did the builds back then, and it's like I know when I made that comment, all I ever had was sprint. That was my travel power.
Yeah.
I sacrificed everything so my character could jog.
Adam, favorite zone. Where did you like to hang out? Where was your, besides Pocket D, just probably because it was a nightclub?
Well, the only zone I really got to see a shit ton of was Atlas Park.
Mm-hmm.
All the outside.
No, hold on, no. There's one more place you got to see the ton of. The inside of AE.
Yeah,
And Mercy Island.
Okay.
I think my favorite zone would have to be the login screen.
That's not a zone.
Because I could always get out of it. I don't think I had one. 'Cause I never got to really like go to any of the zones that were cool. I never found one that was cool. Maybe the one that you.
I thought you liked that Silent Hill one. That was pure fog.
But I never really got to.
We're not gonna-
I never really got to
the darkest
examine that one though. Like really go to it and.
I
look.
thought you'd like the remake though of it.
No, I'll get to it in a minute. How about you, sir? Favorite zone? Where did you like to hang out?
Besides top
Anything
of
that
buildings.
you could perch yourself on in your little
Pretty
pose?
much.
He would take this gargoyle statue pose and just anything he would find, and all of a sudden the text would come across the screen. Mine.
I remember doing that on top of the police trucks when we had a bank machine.
Yes. For me, besides Atlas, because Atlas was always home. That's always where I went back to, with the exception of when I was logging out for the day jobs. I always went back to Atlas. That's always where I was. That's always where I'd go and just sit and kind of, even if I wasn't doing anything in game, that's 90% of the time where Valo was at, was hiding in Atlas. I usually sat somewhere up by the flag, just for, pose purposes. Dark Astoria, in-game wise, was where Valo was supposed to be from. That's the original Silent Hill zone, dark and foggy. I really enjoyed the remake of it. Just added more to like the build of my character's backstory. I also really liked Croatoa. Was kind of like where the pumpkin people were, and Jack and Irons and
I
stuff
don't
like
think
that.
he'd ever actually been
No.
there. Because that was one of those zones you never had much of a reason to go there for.
I went there for the Katie Hannon task force
Yeah,
and stuff. Yeah.
Grower pumpkin people.
Yeah, there was like stick pumpkin people. They were called the Bannon were the Wookiees with the fucking antlers. And
I
what were
can't
the other
remember
ones?
them.
I really can't either.
I never fought them much. It's like I remember seeing them, but it's like I never had to fight you because you're
Isn't
level 20s.
Croatoa that place that vanished in America? That island where people were there and then they were gone and all that was written they found was Croatoa.
I have no idea.
That's some other weird.
No idea. Least favorite zone. Andy, go.
Any of those horribly stupid small cave missions.
Tunnel caves.
I got stuck so many times.
The ones where they were like mine shafts. They weren't big enough for him to navigate through. How about you?
Atlas Park.
Least favorite was Atlas Park.
Yes.
Why?
Because I was there so much. To me, I would get jumped and mugged so many times there by those stupid freaking hellions.
It's not like an NPC.
Mine was probably Boomtown. It was a complete waste of space. There was no reason to go there except to fight the prince. Was the prince there? I think he was.
Was Prince
Yeah,
Boomtown?
yeah. It was just. It looked cool. It was like completely. Like take a city and completely level all the buildings. It's just rubble and fire and everything. It looked cool. Way too big, and nothing there. There's some clockwork, and that's it. No point to being there. Which brings me to my next point. Maybe you guys could touch on this. For me, a big aspect, especially coupled with the different zones and how each zone kind of had its own feel to it, and the ability to fly through the game. The exploration for me in City of Heroes was a big thing. I spent countless hours just flying around, seeing what everything is, seeing how everything looked, finding the exploration badges and things like that. For you, I know you didn't do a whole lot of it, but maybe you can touch on how the zones and different areas that you were able to experience stacked up against other games that you've played.
The biggest thing that drove me up a wall was that it was sectioned.
Okay.
Like to me, it felt like if you put a game in that had fly in it, I should be able to fly to the other zones, not have to go down to ground level and go through a car tunnel to get there, or go through a door. That's
Or
what
take
drove
the
me-
train.
or
Superheroes on the train.
Or take a train. Especially when they had the trains that didn't connect. You had to go like, I gotta get in the green line, then the blue line, and
Then you had to take a ferry.
it drove me up a wall that they had, especially like in the Atlas area, those weird barriers above the wall.
War walls.
Yeah, those
They had a story element to it, to be honest.
It's,
It was a design element, but they also implemented it into the story.
it was just to me that I felt like I was kind of like a slight cop out for
Mm-hmm.
the flying. I know at the time, you couldn't, they couldn't probably technologically be able to do it.
Mhm.
But like with World of Warcraft and Guild Wars and all that, the zones are, they blend
They have
together.
more
They
of a
seem
natural flow
together.
to it.
I can
Fair
go
enough.
from an Arctic zone to this zone,
Mhm.
just by walking.
One thing that they were talking about before NCSoft pulled the plug was actually with Going Rogue and the way Going Rogue went and the transition between the different areas without having the war walls. That was a big thing for Going Rogue. They were talking about actually going back and taking down war walls. I don't know how much of a reality that was going to be, because it did take involving a lot of re-engineering big parts of the game. That could have been the secret project that they were talking about. Could have been taking down the war walls.
Yeah. With Going Rogue and Praetoria,
Praetoria,
there's no wall, but it still was a loading screen.
there was a loading screen, which I understand from a design aspect, but it was still a fair transition where you didn't have to find that entry point. You just kind of right to it. Just like any open world game that you may play now. There's always, whether you see it or not, there's a load point. Even as recent as like Red Dead had load points where the draw distance, it would take a second for the rest of the world to kind of generate and you'd be able to see it. Skyrim isn't a seamless transition. There are
Far
load
Cry
points.
2,
Mhm.
all
Yeah.
those games. They usually have like a set area of like where you're at. It'll load like a certain radius around you, and that's what it does.
Yeah.
I know that.
So, but I mean, just keeping it with what we're talking. How about for you, sir? The exploration aspect of it.
A little interesting, especially considering like a couple of those Easter eggs. Like they had that little, the little coffee room, and what was that?
Where the donut was, Fault Line.
Yeah.
You're talking about, yeah.
You had
under
to find that little thing hidden under the
the
staircase.
dev room. The
Yeah,
dev
that
room.
was it.
Yeah. Mhm.
Little pinball machines and everything.
There's a hidden room in a zone called Fault Line. Fault Line is where you can get one of the exploration badges for flying through the donut.
I have that one. Or jumping through it.
Yeah. However, there is towards one of the drop-off points. There's a set of stairs you go down, and under one of the stairs, there's a little doorway, single file doorway that leads to the dev room. And in it, Melissa Bianco is in there. The actual devs made NPCs and put them specifically in that room, and you can listen to part of their conversations about creating the game. It's really meta. One of the things that they did recently is I saw one of the screenshots go up on Facebook was they packed it with like 200 people. 200 in-game players were all packed into the dev room in there. It was awesome looking. But yeah, I totally get what you mean. Finding the little nooks and crannies and things like that.
Find those, and like even like later on when they redid some of the maps, like I know it would be more like interior, but like how they had like the mansion for Manticore during his missions.
Mhm.
It was nice to even like see those kind of like interior designs compared to here's a warehouse that
Yeah.
uses blocks A, B, C, D, and that's all you're doing.
With the exception of the actual missions, yeah, definitely being out in the world, and then you find the plaques and stuff like that, and they give you a little lore, a little
Backstory.
history. The statues, every statue in the game meant something. It was nice. It was really cool. Along with exploration, and this is one topic that I didn't write down, and I'm kicking myself in the ass. Every once in a while, you'd be cruising through a zone, and all of a sudden, you'd run smack dab into a GM. And a GM is a term that they use in World of Warcraft, which means something completely different in City of Heroes. GM stands for Giant Monster.
Not game money. Adam.
And essentially,
supposed to know?
a giant monster is like a mini raid boss. Usually requires at least a team of 8 to take down. And they're pretty badass. Before Incarnates. Yeah. Every zone, just about every zone had one or an event that would trigger one. The one that always comes to mind for me is that fucking stupid octopus, Luska. That would be sitting in the water. Recently, I believe it was the week that they announced the closing of City of Heroes, they actually spawned 2 of them. They
Yeah,
flipped the switch
they-
to spawn 2 of them.
What was it, that Twitch TV thing? Whatever you
Yeah,
told me
during
about?
Twitch TV.
We were on one of the servers, and I transferred one of my characters over to it, and I was listening, and I'm watching and playing with him, and he was like, "All right, I'm going to end this, da da da," and he was messing around with like animations, like, "Oh, look what I can make my character do!" Explodes him into like an atom bomb. Did nothing to the level or anything, just giant animation. He's like, "I can also spawn stuff." Luska. It's like shit.
Yeah.
He spawns like 3 GMs on everybody who's like farting around. It's like, oh, my character's on TV, and you just got smacked out of the air by a giant octopus.
Luska was definitely one of my favorites. Along with, I'll include it because it was just another one of those scenarios you could be out kind of wandering the world, and all of a sudden the sky changes color, and it's a Rick the Invasion. There was other ones. There was the zombie one, thing like that. We'll get to those a little bit more.
Jurassic.
Yeah.
Being smacked with a car.
Favorite giant monster, and if you don't remember the name, that's okay. Describe it, and one of us should be able to name it.
The ghost one.
Uh,
The miner ghost one that had a giant freaking miner stripe.
Sharkhead.
Yeah,
Sharkhead.
Sharkhead. I know what you're talking about. He had the 100 like plus followers with him. Scrapyard.
Scrapyard. Yeah. Why? Why did you like
Okay, that's the
Scrapyard?
only one I've ever seen.
No, you saw the octopus.
Never saw the octopus.
I took you to meet the Kraken.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
I might have seen. I saw a tentacle. That's all I saw.
Okay.
He's
you remember.
the only, and he's the only one that I've tried fighting.
Okay.
I tried using Mass Confuse on all his minions. Hoping
How'd
that
it
they would
work?
kill. He killed all his minions. I did Mass Confuse on them. They turned, went to fight him. He hit me, did some weird AoE. All the minions died, and I died.
Is it bad? I actually used him to test my brute to see how he could tank. It's like, oh, there's Scrapyard. I just got you to 50, and I got half your enhancements done. It's like, here comes 100 and like plus miners. It's like, all right, let's just see what happens. Run in. It's like 30 minutes of standing there. It's like, yay, I'm not dying. It's like, what do I do about you? All of a sudden, like 5 people join in. It's like, oh, we just killed Scrapyard.
Andy, if that's your favorite, then cool. But do you have a favorite giant monster that you've encountered, or an epic battle that you had against one?
Not much of an epic, just more like intro. I didn't know much of him back then. Like I said, Jurassic, because I'm running down the street and a car smacks me in the side of the head, and he's standing
It
there.
was in Craze Folly.
I think it was. I
Yeah,
just
that's
remember
where
it was like
Jurassic
that
was.
really weird place with like a lot of water and
Yeah.
swarms, and it's just like, here's a car.
There's one.
Okay.
I just thought of this. I think there's one thing I wish they would have done, which could have been a cool like giant monster or event, because they had like the Rick D Warzone and stuff. I wish they would have had like the villains or the heroes when they had it split actually invading areas, not actually have to do a mission for it, but have a random, oh, Lord Recluse is invading Atlas City, fight him back.
They actually did in Recluse's Victory, which was a level 50 area.
Yeah, but that's an area. I mean, like an
He means like an area.
Like
No, I
that's like
know
Rick
what
D
you mean.
Warzone. That would have been cool to have a random, hey, this villain's attacking. All of us have to get together and go defend it, or this hero's trying to,
Sure.
do that. I thought that would have been really cool and given the characters more of a, other than the arc actually do stuff.
Sure. I get what you
It
mean.
would have been awesome giant bosses.
You should have spent a little bit more time in Recluse's Victory.
Actually, I
'Cause
just thought about
it was
one.
kind of granted it was centralized to a specific zone, but that's literally as you were activating things, all of a sudden you get a warning flashing across the screen. The villains are coming. Okay. Holy shit! There's a Recluse. Oh, there's Ghost Widow and Sirocco and
Scorpion.
and Black Scorpion. I'm by myself. Let's see what happens. Bam, done. No lie. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Hammy. Okay. I thought you didn't like Hammy.
It's not something I cared for. It was like definitely like the lag and just the amount of like focus. If people were screwing around it, everything went backfired. But I mean, that had to be probably like one of the more the closest thing to like an end game raid, I guess, because it actually required people to think and focus. Where it's like only certain things could die in a certain way. You can't have like one person do everything type of sort of thing.
For me, my favorite was probably the first one I encountered, because if you remember, I stated that I started playing Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, was the Snowman. Literally, I logged into the game, and I'm walking around Atlas, and I look up, and there's this giant fucking snowman with a big ass carrot sticking out of his nose. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? Next thing you know, he picks up a snowball and chucks it at me and kills me. And I'm like, what the fuck happened?
But it wasn't like a normal snowman. It wasn't like the 3 round ball.
No, it was.
Because I saw when you said that, I just had this giant image of this giant 3 round ball
Also,
thing standing there.
We'll get into it a little bit more, but I do remember the first Rick D invasion I encountered. They had drop ships that are flying, up. And I'm like, I'm going to go punch one of those. And I take off.
Frame.
Yeah. Free him. Yeah. And I take off flying. And I'm keeping pace with it. I'm like, come on. I'm paying attention to how close it is to the end of the zone. All of a sudden, big purple beam. And I just fall to the ground dead. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Remember we were doing one of those and the bomb landed right on my head?
Yes. Yes. I did manage to hit one once. Mm-hmm. I have hit one. I've never been able to kill one. Always wanted to. Don't know. You probably can't. I don't know. I really don't know.
You can. They're like their own raid boss, though.
I've never seen anybody take one down. Never.
Not solo. I've
well,
seen
not
them
solo.
done
I've
with
never.
like
I've never
done
personally
solo.
seen it in a group. But I always wanted to. I don't even know where I'm at on my list anymore. Here we go. This is something that Andy will probably talk in great depth with. I can touch on it a little bit. And this was a big point of frustration and confusion for you with the game, Adam.
Character creation?
No.
Character customization?
Close. The enhancement system.
Oh, that annoying thing. One you guys broke my character with.
See, in City of Heroes, you didn't really get gear or weapons. Every character...
You got
Well,
weapons.
character
Hold on.
skins.
Well, yeah. Again, I'm sticking to the base of it.
Gotta be an ass.
You were able to modify what your particular ability did by enhancing it with different options. This is where a big portion of the game was. Again, Andy and I had very similar play styles, very similar character builds. Our enhancement sets were completely different. And it offered up 2 very distinct, very different play styles. And the reason that I say that is because I actually gave Andy control of my character for an evening, and he, for the life of him, could not seem to grasp, and not in a negative way, couldn't grasp how to play him. Didn't know what, he was able to help me build him and help me form him by what the input that I was giving him and what I wanted to do. But when he sat down to try to do it and play himself, he couldn't do it. Why did you dislike the enhancement system, Adam?
It was confusing at first.
It's confusing to this day. It is. It is in regards. Hold on.
Because
hold
at
on.
first, when you first get into it, you think, okay, damage abilities should just, cool down to more damage. Well, there's other, like those special ones that cost millions and millions of influence.
That I had all of them.
That did other things that get damage and cool down and had a chance to maybe confuse the enemy or knock back and all. It just, it got to the, it was pretty much like your gear in World of Warcraft, almost, of, you're going to sit down and it's like, what gear can I get that's going to make me do this to do this better and do that? Whereas I just wanted to be like, I just want to hurt things and confuse things. Let's go. Why do I have to do this?
Initially, with the game, the initial thought was the enhancements were perks. If you didn't want to enhance your character, all you had to do is if it took damage, slot it with damage. That was how the game was. As it progressed, it became its own beast, and there was this entire absolutely ridiculous mathematics system behind enhancements that I was able to grasp, but not on the level of this guy sitting right here next to me.
I remember looking at one person's character sheet at one time because it would tell you like the buffs they were getting and stuff, and it would be like, you look at normal person, 50% damage, and then somebody I looked at was like, like 3 paragraphs long, and I'm like, what the hell is all that?
Sounds like
Slashing
mine.
lethal resist. It's like 1%.
Yeah, I was like, I had no clue what it was at
Minor,
first.
superior, ultimate. Yeah.
Yeah, I had no clue what that was at first, and then I realized it was like, oh, all the buffs he's getting from his enhancements. Oh, enhancement to other things other than just give my thing power and cooldown reduction?
Yeah. Better accuracy.
I still remember when they first came out, and you still told me it was like, oh, they're bad for you, and it's like, this doesn't make sense.
The way that they were initially explained to me as they were used for like people who were trying to get different things out of the, like, we were playing the game to have an experience where we were playing together. Those were like the hardcore crazy players that do PvP and things like that.
Have no life?
Yeah, and that's what we ended up being, with exception of the PvP.
Oh god, don't
Having
get me
no
started
life?
on that.
Yeah.
Hey, the PvP was fun when we fought the monkeys. In the monkey cage, I should say.
Yeah, we had good times.
I died.
Go ahead and take it
I
away.
uncloaked you.
Scoot up here, because this section is designed specifically for you. Go ahead and tell us why you liked or disliked enhancements, and what headaches enhancements brought you.
The headaches when I had to do your character.
Just mine.
You guys broke mine.
Okay, but also too.
You know, I'm sure I'm going to pause here because he's been taking this shot all day. I could probably log into the game right now, log into his account, and play his character better than he ever imagined.
Go right ahead. I know the
Okay.
password right now. We can do this live.
I
Let's
know
do
your
it.
password too. I should give it out right now.
Go ahead. They gotta figure out the account name first.
It was I know yours because again.
yeah, because it was set by Dondelinger over here.
Oh jeez. Anyways, keeping on topic.
Gayest account name ever.
Go ahead. Give it. What is
No,
it?
I meant his.
Oh,
The, like,
yeah.
What was it?
Completely
Lost Love or something?
You don't even remember.
No, because it was the account I gave you.
He tried for an entire evening to figure out a way to change that account.
Dude, I even asked the devs to see if I could change it. It's like, no. It's like, shit.
Go ahead and take it away with enhancements.
It was just something that made my character better. I mean, I did it in WoW where it was like, I never liked the feeling where I couldn't pull my own weight. And that sticks with me to this day. And I've done it in WoW where it was like, I gotta find the gear that, even if it's like a 0.1% bonus, I'll still take it. And I will do it until I'm at my cap. And then in City Heroes, where it was like, you can do the same thing, well, here it is for a character that it's like, I designed, I am more attached to than like a character from WoW, where it's like default B. So, more attachment to the character, more wanting to make him go better, and just survive beyond what other people can do. Then to read the forums, it's like, oh, regen is crap, and to be able to turn around and fuck you!
I did that a lot too. I did
We
that.
both
a lot,
did.
I still, to this day, don't think, and I'm not trying to boost my own ego, I don't think I've seen a dark on Justice, and I can only speak for Justice. And with the time and the hours and years that I've invested in the game, that can hold a torch to Valo. You know, I haven't seen it. I don't want to linger too long because we still have quite a few points that I want to get to. This one will be kind of quick. Did the lore and the history that they built, the backstory of the game, mean anything to you, Andy or Adam? Sorry.
We get confused. We do look like each other.
Yeah.
The only lore that I ever really liked. It was the one that was based off Ghost Widow.
Okay.
Her lore interests me a lot because she was all creepy and paranormal-ish. That's about it.
Okay.
I could never grasp what the hell was going on.
Okay. Too complex for you?
Yes.
Too much reading?
Way too much
Words
reading.
that you didn't
Way too much
understand.
reading for an MMO. If they would have voiced everything over like EverQuest 2, I would have been fine.
They started to do voiceovers and stuff, but NCSoft had to go and fuck that up too. Thank you. How about you, sir?
Lore-wise, I never fully got into it. I mean, I got like all the plaques and stuff for badges, but it's like I never read most of them.
For me, again, being the comic book fan that I am, I really got into the lore, especially during that time when I was down in Florida by myself and doing my exploration and scouring the zones. I wanted to know why this was like that and why that was like that. Even went so far as I own the City of Heroes comics and the books and things like that. So I've spent countless hours not only building the backstory for my character, but learning the world of City of Heroes. And it's kind of, that's one of the big things about it shutting down is this world's no longer going to exist. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what it means personally to me, but the game shutting down and my character and everything. But not having access to that world and that content is kind of a big thing to me. It'd be like if one day, and I know you probably in the same thing with WoW, you follow the lore and everything a little bit more. You know what's going on a little bit more. For you, if all of a sudden one day they went poof, it's gone.
I'd be free.
You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
I would be. I'm not. My addiction to WoW has subsided.
I understand, and again, I don't just have you here because you're, you did play
I'm
City
your
of
punching
Heroes.
bag. That's why you have me here. You have me strapped to this chair.
So yeah, that's a big aspect to me. It's kind of like the ending of a really good video game trilogy or a movie where you're not going to. There's no new stories. You're not going to revisit this. As to where with an MMO, it kind of was an evolution. It evolved, or like a TV show when the series comes to an end. It's like, well, all you have is reruns, right? You can go back and relive that content. When they shut down a game, there's no content to relive. There's no story to go back to. Sure, I can read the wikis and things like that while they're still up and while they still survive. But you can't go back and experience that the way that you originally did ever again. It's gone. So that for me is a big thing. Before I get too deep and pull the mood down. Favorite NPC? I'm pretty sure you kind of already touched on. Anything else that you want to add to her? The reason that you liked Ghost Widow?
Because she was undead.
Yeah. It wasn't because she had big white boobies?
Considering I don't like boobies in general.
Kind of attracted me to her. It's like, look at them ghost boobies.
That's necrophilia.
Necrophilia.
UFO.
Yes, her. She is my favorite.
Okay. Did you ever read into any of her backstory or get the whole thing?
How she tried. Well, I think if I remember correctly, she Lord Recluse kind of screwed her.
Yeah. In a week's time, it ain't gonna matter how it went. It's gonna matter how you remember it.
No, it does. No. You know what? I'm gonna go steal one of their servers right now.
Go for it.
We're driving to. Where is it?
Anyways, how about you, sir? Do you have a particular NPC that you tended to gravitate towards that you kind of?
As dumb as it's going to
Really
sound,
liked.
would yourself count?
I'm not an NPC.
No, but I'm referring to those clone missions.
You egotistical prick.
Hey, it was kind of fun fighting like 10 yourself.
Not when they all confused me.
That was your own damn fault.
Clone missions with a controller. Worst thing ever.
For me,
so
had
much
to been
uninspired.
one of them was Nemesis.
Yeah.
Just because you knew who was the good guy, you know who the bad guy was. It was Statesman. It was Lord Recluse. But then you had this before Marcus Cole came into it. Tyrant. Before he came into play, you had this third kind of puppet master pulling the strings and manipulating things, and that was Nemesis. And it just kind of sucks that we're not going to see how that played out. That's what they were building
I'll agree to
towards.
that. He was
The coming storm, the one guy that you meet in Ouroboros is actually Nemesis.
Well, thanks for spoiling that.
Yeah,
Might as well tell them what
sorry.
happens
Guess
to
what?
Mr.
Guess what? Statesman died.
No, he didn't.
Other
killed
than
him.
that, I really, and again, it's not because I can draw similarities to him and Batman. I really like Manticore because actually, Manticore at one point becomes a villain. He's a double agent, which you don't find out until the end. That was really cool.
He's the one with the red furry hair.
It's actually just his cowl. That's the way it is. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's him. Positron was always cool. It's hard for me to kind of pick out one particular NPC because the main ones, they did have so much going for them. They had, they really built these characters like if you were writing a comic book, they had backstories, they had conflicts and everything. It was all in all a really interesting world. But yeah, if I have to pick one, it'd be Manticore because he also branched off, and before Batman did it in current comics, Batman has Batman Incorporated. He's got like a whole bunch of Batman and stuff. I know they did it way back when. I won't get into it because I'm veering off too much. But Manticore has his own group of like a gang that do his bidding for him too. That you find out a little bit later. It's not the Warriors.
So Manticore is the second hero to go villain?
He's not a villain, but he went villain undercover.
Oh, okay.
Okay. His wife gets brain fucked in one of the later stories of Who Will Die. But he also has his own group separate from the Freedom Phalanx. Because he doesn't necessarily agree with how Statesman does things and how the Phalanx do things. It's too much red tape. He's got his own group of vigilantes that do what he wants and how he wants it done. So that's another really cool aspect. Holiday events and special events, any that stand out to you, Adam, that you experienced?
The Christmas ones. Because
Christmas
I remember my first one is there was a present sitting in the middle of the street.
Mm-hmm.
It was all shiny and new.
And blinking at you?
And blinking at me, and I opened it. And what came out? Snowman muggers. Snowman fucking muggers. That killed me. Who put snowman in a
Unfortunately,
box?
I mentioned it before. You didn't really get to experience the Halloween event, did you?
No, I heard about it. And
Halloween
then you guys...
was really cool because you actually went up to any door in the game and you were able to click on them and it'd say trick or treat, and the door would open and either you get a reward or enemies would run out the door at you and whoop the shit out of you. Along with that, they had the zombie apocalypse, which was like a Richter raid, except zombies were coming up out of the ground and the sky would turn blood red. It was really cool.
I think I might have experienced one of those, because I remember there was an altar thing you had to run to, or...
That was a little different than what we're talking about. That was later on. Very similar though. But the zombies dealt toxic damage. And
Those things were a
nobody had fucking resistance or defense to toxic. They sucked. You had like 2%. Shut up.
Reconstruction gave like 30.
Yeah,
15 to
whatever.
30.
It didn't do anything. You still died.
Yeah, levels.
How about you, sir? Any specific special events?
Christmas, just because I still even have it like in my head now, that little like party kazoo when you open a present. Yeah, but yet you got snowmen to kick your ass. And then just like any like the Halloween, or it was like the 4 spots across the map that I never fully understood for that.
I
But
did
just,
that
like,
one, yeah.
Seeing the whole place just go like pitch black and
yeah.
everything go creepy, that's the kind of stuff I love.
I liked Christmas event, and I hated it. The reason I hated it is because they opened up that fucking ski lodge, and I could never do them. I could never complete them. I'm going to reveal a big glaring thing here, okay? Because I have the badges for it. I didn't complete it. I had Andy log into my account and do them for me.
That's against the LUA.
I don't give
Or
a shit.
ELUA.
It doesn't matter anymore.
It does.
It does. What are they gonna do? Ban me?
And you're making your next podcast. You're gonna be like, found out, tried logging in before the end of the game, found out my account was banned.
Fuck it. You know, I only know the login of like 10 other people. I log into their shit. Okay, doesn't matter. I have everybody's. But Halloween was probably my favorite event. It was probably the one that, and when they went crazy and turned everything on.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the end of the game. They did it just last year.
I think that's what I experienced.
And I will always and forever love the Richter raids. I remember running around hunting bombs and trying to get the elite bosses to spawn, and just the madness that ensued. where people didn't know what the hell was going on, and everybody's like screaming, "Invite me to a team! Invite me!"
We're getting enough people to where you had like the EB giant mecher things
yeah.
spawn, and then you had like the actual. Was he an AV or a GM? AV, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Arch
it's like,
villain, for those who don't know.
yeah, you had like so many people could get together that it was enough to like crash people's computers because the zone would be at like pop cap, and each person would like be calling in like 10 enemies just for themselves.
Yep. Along with that, because it would fall into the line with that and the next one, which is favorite mission. I absolutely loved doing the mothership raids and Hamadan. I know I did a lot more than you, but I was a little bit more involved in the community and the private channels and everything. And when they orchestrated them, I remember sitting at my old apartment when I had the computer hooked up to the TV and took a screenshot of my first Hammy raid. I was like, "Look at Andy, I'm gonna do it! I'm gonna do it!" And like an hour later, I'm like, "Oh my god, it was awesome!" Yeah, it was a complete, total nerd moment, but it was phenomenal. I do have a favorite mission, which I will bring up in just a few. Did you have a particular favorite mission, Adam? Anything that stood out to you, like a strike force or anything that we all did together that you were like, "Wow, that was cool"? That's dead air, by the way.
No.
No? Okay, fair enough.
I had to think. What do you want me to go?
You
No.
could have gone,
But then they're going to think I'm doing something.
yeah. Andy?
I had a couple like that I liked throughout the time. Like I said, the clone missions, those were fun in each their own way. Especially when you're not expecting it, you got the shit kicked out of you by yourself.
Yeah.
Because it was an exact duplicate. And then even like the new tutorial missions, like when they revamped all of those, it's like they turned your character into a bumbling idiot.
Yeah.
So it's like you're going up to a thing and it's like, we need a blood sample. And it's like, give hair, give like DNA, punch the screen. And it's like,
Yeah.
DNA incomplete. It's like, did this thing just tell me I'm missing DNA? And it's like, what the fuck?
One was when you fight the future version of yourself, the god of yourself, was pretty cool. The first part of Incarnate, when you go Incarnate and they give you everything, you have all the abilities. Remember that?
Yeah, that was like all the same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. When you're fighting in Ouroboros,
Every AV in the
Yeah.
game. One shot.
You're one-shotting every AV in the game. You're like, yes! And then it's like, gone. No powers. My be-all, end-all favorite is a strike force and a task force that can be done by both hero and villain. And I will give the reason why. It is the Reichsman strike force task force. Adam, you may not like that one because, you know, it's when the alternate world where the Nazis win. Yeah. And Statesman is actually Reichsman. He looks like M. Bison
Who's on Bison?
from Street Fighter.
Oh.
Here's why, okay? Because I've never been, and up until that point, I had always kind of joined when people formed them. I never really led. But there came a very integral turning point in my character's evolution when we came into the room with Reichsman. Reichsman fucks everybody up. Everybody.
Shut up.
Andy goes down. Our entire team wipes. Except me. Because I'm resistant. Because for once, it finally paid off. The build that I have for my character. So literally, if we want to complete this mission and keep going, I've got to tank this guy while everybody respawns at the door and has to get all the way back. And we had failed versions of it where the halls were completely filled with enemies.
Didn't we leave all the spawns
Yes.
alone?
So we left all the spawns alone, ran right to the door, and literally I'm like, holy shit, hurry up, get here, help, oh my god. It was like 5 minutes of just me and him slugging it out. And because I was equipped properly, I was able to match him for the damage that he was putting out to me. So I was keeping him from regenning. It was amazing. Best experience ever. Greatest
Bullshit.
night.
You had your damn dagger.
Exactly. I knew that I needed a envenomed dagger to keep hitting him with to keep him from regenning. That's what thinking ahead does. We kind of talked about it a little bit, but we'll give a little bit more detail, and feel free to give out names. Andy, you have quite an extensive list of different characters, ranging from just about everything available in the game.
No support.
You've tried.
Shit,
You've
no, I
tried.
do
Yeah,
have
you
one.
do.
Crap.
Your little fucking blue dragon with the no pants. He always likes to make dragons with no pants. He's got one with pants. All the other ones have no pants.
No, 2 at least.
Shut up. Trench coat and no pants doesn't count. That's just perverted. Your be-all, end-all favorite tune. Who is your main character? Who is your favorite character to play as in City of Heroes?
Dro.
Dro. Is that you just gonna call him Dro, or is it...
Drogonus is his full name. He's he's where everything in my time has gone to.
Cool.
No regrets.
Adam, out of the hundreds of thousands of different characters that you've created over the span of City of Heroes and the millions
Mantis.
that you've deleted...
Hold on, are we actually factoring in the ones he's deleted too?
Yeah, I'm counting
Laughing
everything.
Mantis.
Laughing Mantis. Now, is that the one that I helped you design?
Yes,
Yeah.
that is the one that is a ripoff of.
Psycho Mantis.
That's like the uber anorexic Psycho Mantis.
Yeah, that's the one that you won the costume.
Yes.
For me, it is always and forever will be my main character, my original character, Valo. After that, it would probably be the next character that I was building up, which was completely 180 from anything that I've ever played up until about a year ago, and that was my healer that I was making.
The cheerleader?
Was
Yeah.
it Taste the Rainbow Bitch?
Taste the rainbow, bitch! Yeah. I made a chick in an MMO just because I actually looked and I was like, wow, some of these chick costumes are pretty badass.
Which I never understood why they had like
They had better
times and
armor.
a half. Well, they had like times and a half more stuff than the other
they
male did.
So yes, my healer, Paramore of Paragon was her name because you were in Paragon City. I spelled it like the band Paramore. Totally fucking bubblegum pop bullshit. Her powers were rainbow colored. Okay, and her battle cry was "Taste the rainbow, bitch."
Was it healer?
Yep. She was a healer, and she was able to do negative regen.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was actually useful. She was able to break through Mog with the buildups that we had built for her.
Yeah.
With her sniper shot, if somebody mogged when they become invincible, Mog is Moment of Glory also. It means basically a temporary, it's like 30-second invincible, no attacks go through. I was able to stack enough accuracy and everything on my character to negate that and break it. So that was awesome. Least favorite character. Go, Adam. That you made. Least favorite.
The level 50. I don't remember. Unit Gravity.
That's not your level 50.
That's one of my level 50s.
How many level 50s do you have?
2.
Okay.
Not many.
Dr. Ramstein and Unit Gravity, who was my force field gravity controller,
Okay.
who was completely like useless.
Mhm.
Like completely.
Okay.
The only reason I got him to level 50 is because of Propel.
Ridiculous.
Which
Andy.
you got at level 2.
Oh. Least favorite character that you've built.
Stalker.
No, that one I enjoyed. That was just like not a build for. I mean, at best, I could say it would be the ones I couldn't get a build for. That would have been my assassin and my Titan Fire Scrapper, because I was always iffy with those slashing lethal builds.
Okay.
I could never get a build for him, and it's like I loved his design, but I was always so pissed off because of that issue.
Mine was my second level 50.
Click.
My Warshade Click, yeah. I tried so hard to make him work in different builds and different abilities and stuff, and I just never could grasp it. Never could get him to work. Very close after him was my level 41 dual pistol character, Corruptor. Great concept. He was dual pistol, and he was...
I don't remember the other part.
Anyways.
Empathy? Or no, Kinetic.
Kinetic, yeah. Really cool costume design. Really liked the character that I came up with. Just could not make him work for the life of me. A lot of MMOs have come and gone in the 8-year span that City of Heroes has been around. It really kind of only has, in my opinion, one other game that's been around as long that was able to maintain and evolve the way that City of Heroes did, and that's World of Warcraft. Those two, regardless of my loyalty and everything for City of Heroes, I honestly can't think of any other games that have continued to evolve and maintained the way that those two have. So, can you think of any?
EVE Online.
Okay.
It's also the only MMO out there that I'm aware of that did what City of Heroes did and gave out free expansions. To my knowledge, there's nothing there's been no expansions for EVE that you've had to pay for. They've given you a shit ton of new content.
But I'm talking about longevity.
EVE Online's been out for I think even before City of Heroes.
Does it? Okay.
I think.
Fair enough. Again, that's just one that maybe not on my radar, so it's not one that I'm cognizant of. But I mean, you've had a lot of MMOs are what I like to describe as flavor of the month or flash in the pan. You've had Conan, Warhammer, Star Wars,
Rift,
Aeon,
Tabula Rasa,
Auto Assault, so many. DC Universe, that's still around, but it did not, continue the way it did.
The only MMO that I'm pretty sure blew up the first couple months it was out. Bulletin.
I know which one you're
All
talking
Points
about.
Bulletin.
Yeah, All Points Bulletin.
APB.
Yeah.
There's so many that have come and gone and did not have the lasting power that a World of Warcraft or City of Heroes had. Why do you think that is?
I feel that some MMOs they have high expectations, like this is what we're gonna do, and then they realize when they get their stuff going that they can't do what they said they're gonna do,
Okay.
or a lot of people get turned off on launch day. That is a big day where people will sometimes make or break an MMO because there have been some MMOs where the game has completely crashed on launch day because
Star Wars.
the servers couldn't handle it, and there's other ones that they had enough
Warhammer.
servers that they were able to, some of the smoothest launches. Some people are always gonna have problems when.
Yeah.
But there's been smoother launches, I can't think of one.
That's okay. I see you over there doing some research.
I'm just looking at EVE Online's date.
Okay, what is it?
According to this, North America, May 6, 03.
Okay, so yeah, predates City of Heroes to a year. How about you, sir? Why do you feel that City of Heroes was able to survive as long as it did?
I did one more. It's one of the type of MMO that it is. It's besides Champions Online, is the only superhero MMO out there. To my knowledge.
There's DC Universe. If you're talking about,
or at least was the first of its kind.
if you're talking about modern setting, similar, if you want, there was the Matrix Online, which a lot of people don't even remember.
I never played that.
But again, if you want to count the Matrix type people,
it was the
yeah.
first of its kind. It was the first
Sure.
superhero MMO that did things right. Then there was Champions that.
To put it bluntly, it was different.
Yeah,
It was.
I mean, like I said, my main MMOs have been Guild Wars and WoW, and it's just to play something where you were able to make your own character. Later on, you add in the ability to make your own home, and then later on, they add the ability to make your own missions, where everything you basically do is customized to how you want to play. That set it apart from everything else on the market.
Yeah. So, and you nailed it on the head. Both of you have. The only other thing that I can think that I can kind of try to touch on a little bit is like you said, the uniqueness of it. I also think that there was, not saying that these other developers didn't, but there was a lot of passion in what Paragon Studios was able to do. Some people were there for 10 years working on this game. A lot of the time you get your core developers, and then once that initial launch is over, they move on, and you're left with a skeleton crew to kind of run the game. Coupled in with the amount of content that they put out on a regular basis, they listened to player feedback a lot. I know a lot of other things did, but they held their own conventions,
Events,
yeah. they interacted. They made us feel like we were a part of the development of the game and the evolution of the game, if you will. I think that was a big aspect of it. I also think the game didn't get too overpopulated, if I can. Like, a World of Warcraft, if 50 people are complaining about something, Blizzard's not listening. They'll acknowledge it. Maybe it'll be, like a fix or something, but you're not going to get the same that you would out of a smaller game with a more focused community.
You're gonna wait till the next expansion when they decide to change everything up again and hope to God it goes the way better.
So, go ahead.
Also, I think City of Heroes is also one of those games that hasn't had a big, drastic change in how the game is played.
Sure, they didn't. The core portion of the game was there. They did it in small strokes. They didn't wipe everything out all at once. They would evolve. All right, we're gonna work on the blasters. The blasters are gonna change in the next update.
Well, I mean, like, they didn't take, like, the enhancements. They could have, like, with World of Warcraft, you had, like, I consider, if you want to think of it, enhancements were kind of like your towns.
Yeah.
This is what you wanted to do this. Well, World of Warcraft, they completely overhauled that completely and changed how classes were played, changed how you got abilities, and changed that. But City of Heroes is always, they say, well, you get this power, you get to choose what level, you get what powers at. You still have your enhancements, and they added on top of that to the Incarnate, which instead of overhaul, they could have just dropped enhancements completely and just left you with Incarnate.
It's one of those cases of the more you change, the more you stay the same. They never forgot what brought them to the game, their core.
Yeah.
And also, it wasn't graphically heavy.
Yeah,
But it still looked pretty good.
Well, it's like Jason, I know, played it looking like an N64 game for a long time, where me and you were playing it like it looked like like a high graphic game, and they even had added to the graphics. You could play it even looking more amazing.
Your armor looked
and still have
reflective.
it.
I mean, they had...
They had it at all spectrums of any player that had a computer could almost play it.
Stupid
Stupid
dog.
Mac.
Also, it kind of brings me up to speed with August 31st, when NCSoft announced that a week after Guild Wars, their biggest game to date, had come out, that they were shutting down City of Heroes, disbanding Paragon Studios, effective immediately. The game was going to close November 30th. And that really caused... It was a very dark day, but in the same out of that, and I know it's kind of, again, superhero cliche, there's this power that kind of came out of it, and what that is the Save City of Heroes movement, which in our break we kind of talked about a little bit more, but we're going to get into it a little bit more now. I'd like to get initial thoughts. What did you think when you found out that they were closing?
Bad as I didn't really care because I didn't. To me, I didn't have a huge emotional attachment to City of Heroes. I didn't make any friends when I played City of Heroes. I only mostly played with you guys. It wasn't. I know you guys are gonna feel bad. To me, it was just like. But now, the more that I'm actually thinking about it, I'm gonna be like, well, I'm not gonna be able to get bored, some nights and just reactivate my subscription and go create a hero and mess around and go do this.
You're not going to have that world that at any time that you want to go back to.
Yeah, because it's also one of the first games other than Conan that actually, to me, incorporated necromancy in I can actually have a small legion of guys with me at all times.
Sure.
In other games, you had like one pet that you got. With this, I had 6 guys that were around me at all times.
And again, to be fair, I remember it a little bit better than you do, and I apologize. I don't mean to bring personal stuff into it, but you were dealing with some at-home family things at the time, so it probably didn't have the impact that it had for us. Sweet, I just deleted all my notes. Don't need them anymore, anyways. Andy, how did you feel about it?
It just felt like a huge slap in the face. I mean, I was even on earlier that week with the devs were wanting to do like a game of hide and seek where they were giving out codes for like new auras that they just made. And they announced like maybe one time prior where it's like, okay, here's a chance for free codes. Come find me in Atlas. Here's a clue. And then next day, goodbye.
Yeah.
The hell?
I think if, for me, if the community had dwindled and they weren't continuing to update the game the way that they were, it wouldn't have had the impact it did. But literally, it was like pulling the rug out from under the devs who were still working on new content. The next issue was going up on beta that week, or was already,
up on beta.
And they were like, "We got big news coming, everybody!" And then all of a sudden, NCSoft goes, "Fuck you, you're done." And that's honestly the how I felt about it. I felt like a complete slap in the face. I was like, I've literally spent hundreds, no exaggeration, hundreds of dollars invested into this game, and countless hours, weeks, months into it. I had just earlier in the year gifted Andy $100 worth of Paragon points so that he could be tier 9 like I was. Okay? Which you still have points, I believe.
2.
Yeah.
Oh, and the points wise, I got like 3,000 or 4,000 still.
Yeah. So, very upset about it. As I continued to read at everything that was going on, you were more active on the forums, Andy, than I was. I was more on the channels. I was more in-game. You were more out-of-game. Together, we started to dig into the research of what was going on. And I had always known about the Titan Network, which was a City of Heroes fan site. And they kind of rallied. And once everybody kind of got over the initial sting of the slap in the face, you started to see the community come out. And instead of just bitching and moaning, they're like, well, let's do something about it. Let's rally together. Our voices, if we're going out, let's go out strong. Let's go out united. Let's tell everybody how much BS this is that NCSoft is doing. And they tried to, I'm not going to get into this whole, like, Occupy Wall Street and Anonymous and everything like that, like I quoted before. But it was really a sense of, like, I'm not alone in the pain that I'm feeling, and I know it sounds stupid to say that, but you got to remember, is I had invested 8 years of my life with this character. He was an extension of me. He was my friend. He was there when I was going through some really shitty stuff in my life. I always had that escape, that other world that I could go to and kind of involve myself in, and now I don't have that anymore. On the flip side, out of it, you got Save COH, the movement, if you will, where you've got people, celebrities, and the entire community. I believe the petition that went up is well over 15,000 signatures to date. You've got people who have what they call Plan Z, that they're making the spiritual successor to City of Heroes. They're getting funding going. You've had major corporations bid on City of Heroes. The problem is NCSoft's track record. They don't sell their properties. They close them, they bury them, they move on. The problem with this is this was the Western game. Okay, NCSoft is not from this country. They're an Eastern-based corporation, and they've always been trying to scratch and claw their way into the Western market, which has been mostly dominated by World of Warcraft. They finally had an in because Americans and our people, if you will, we generally like superheroes. All right, superheroes are our Greek gods, if you will. That's how it's always been. When you think about it, okay. So now you're gonna take this away, and now you're screwing yourself over. As I said before, they just posted 52-week loss, lowest stocks they've had, and this is just months after launching their biggest game in years, Guild Wars 2. Mm-hmm. They had to put out the numbers. City of Heroes has maintained roughly $10 million of income for them. Obviously, that's probably not factoring in server maintenance and paying the employees, but either way you cut it, the game was still in the green, was still profitable. So, they come up with this exaggerate figure of 80 million is what they were planning on selling the game for, whatever the hell it is. Again, I may not have all the facts 100%, but that's essentially what I've heard. I won't get into the conspiracy theorists and everything like that. Long story short, NCSoft comes out and gives us a half-assed excuse that they've tried their best to sell the property, and they've heard the outcry of the community, but they're still going forward with their plans, which I think is complete and utter bullshit. Mm-hmm. If the game is still making them money, what is the harm in keeping it open? Consolidate your servers, do whatever you have to do. You don't have to make new content. I understand that takes money and resources and time to do. But why not let the game have a natural death and die off like it should, rather than pull the plug prematurely on it? What's the point?
Well, it doesn't even make sense. Like, why were you even letting them still make things anyway? Because
exactly.
They had the new content that was on beta. Mm-hmm. They had the brand new Tier 9 armor set that they just released like a day before, just like to show off to everybody. That was still in the works, and it's like, it's a slap in the face to us. And then what kind of respect is that to your own people? And
what does that do? And you brought up this point earlier, Adam, is like, well, what's the point? If it's not going to work, we're not going to be able to save the game, what's the point? And my rebuttal to that, unless you have anything else to build on that, would you like to elaborate on that a little bit more?
No. I'm just going to save City of Heroes.
Huh?
I'm going to save City of Heroes. I know how I'm going to do it, too. I'm going to build a time machine.
Why is he bouncing in this chair?
I'm going to build a time machine and kill Hitler.
Maybe his soda just kicked in.
No,
my response to the people that say, well, what's the point? What's the effort? Petitions don't do anything. Going on the forums and talking about it doesn't do anything. When you get out there and you're passionate about something and enough people share your interest, okay, or are passionate like you are, you get websites like IGN, Massively, Machinima, CNN.com to cover what you're talking about and bring attention to what's going on. Because it's not fair to the developers to just decide, hey, we're done with you. Good luck in all your future endeavors. And it's not fair to the community that has invested time and money into your product for you to decide. And granted, I understand they're a company and they're a corporation and they have the right to do it, but it's not proper ethics to just go, hey, done. If they were if you're gonna be a dick like that, why did you even give us 3 months? Why not just turn it off then? That's my whole point. But like I was saying, is right now they're looking like shit. NCSoft looks horrible because of what they've done. So the whole point of Save City of Heroes, ultimately, yes, the far-fetched ultimate goal would have been to keep the game alive. If that's not a reality, it should at least be known what's going on in the practices and how this has been handled, so that a company like NCSoft doesn't just walk away from this unscathed. Now, I'm not saying let's go out there and pull a fucking Fight Club and blow them up and burn them to the ground and revolt against corporations and everything, but the practices need to stop. They need to change. There's been too much in the gaming industry as a whole that has been stuff like this has been happening for way too long, and it's not fair to the people who invest their heart and their soul into building the game and the communities that support them, especially when you have a game with the longevity that City of Heroes has had. So I'm glad that at the very least NCSoft is feeling just the slightest sting of backlash because of this. Okay, if we can't kill them, quote unquote, at least we know they bleed. Okay.
But if it bleeds, we can kill it.
But you know what I mean. Okay. So, again, I know that kind of brought the whole thing down. Do you have anything that you'd like to add to it, Andy?
No, I think I'm good.
I think I'm good with my rant. How about you, Adam?
There was one question that it came to me during the break, and I didn't know when I was going to ask it because I didn't think because you didn't ask it, but I thought you were going to ask it, but you didn't. That would be do you guys have a favorite group or favorite group?
Like enemy class or something?
Yeah, enemies or an organization in the game that you not necessarily enjoyed fighting, but just like the background or the lore to.
Good question.
Mine's the Third Reich.
Duh.
There was no Third Reich.
What was it?
Fifth column.
Fifth column. Oh.
And the
Fifth
count-
column,
and the
and like,
council.
what was it? It was like
The council.
Otherworld, fifth column.
And then that was Nazi America, they called them, or whatever it was. And then
I
there
don't
was
remember
the
the German
council.
game, though.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Bad doggies.
The Third Reich.
Monkeys.
Monkeys.
D-monkeys.
Yours was
Monkeys
the
that
Ricky
you punch
monkeys?
and go poof.
Yours was the Ricky monkeys?
Oh, come on. Friggin' spider plus suppression equals ass cloud.
Ridiculous. Mine was Circle of Thorns, and that's just because I actually wove them into the backstory of my character. With the occult and everything, it kind of fit hand in hand. Even though technically my guy was a mutant, I figured out a workaround for it in the story. But yeah, that was mine. Going off that, obviously I wasn't going to end this on a complete down note of me like bashing and calling a call to arms against NCSoft. I know you said you didn't really make any friends in City of Heroes, but you did spend some time in the game, Adam, with some good friends. Who did you play with?
You, Andy, our mutual friend, and so actually, my fondest memory of it was when we had half our staff when we worked at GameStop playing that one night.
Yeah,
That's what I remember the most.
nice.
I still remember what Ankit made.
Durka the Clown.
No, I think it was the Thorns regen guy.
Uh-huh.
I think it was Thorns regen. I know he had thorns.
Yeah.
But he named it like Durka Dirk.
Yeah, Durka the Dirk or whatever. How about you, Andy?
The nights where we had that night where we had like the get together with everybody, given it didn't last as long as we would have hoped. That's a good memory. Always doing the random stuff with you, and as much as I hate those group aspects of it, did those, and they were still enjoyable. And those are all going to be memories. And
Most
now
definitely.
I get to nag Naz about his other now.
For me, and I'm gonna go over the list of actual people that I've either met in game and maintained friendships with, or actually know. And if I forget somebody, I apologize. But it has been literally like 8 years. Okay, so we've got you two fine gentlemen, of course. Okay, we've got my my friend, former friend Josh. We won't get into that. Dave, Kayla, Ankit, Tina, Naz, Tara,
Omega.
Lamal, the guys from Off the Cape podcast that I got to hang out with, War Boss, a ton of people.
How about you shorten it saying just the entire Justice server?
The entire Justice server, including Smoth. That's right. Fucking Smothzilla. Guy looked like goddamn Godzilla and he was claws. I love you. I'll miss that guy. I'll miss seeing him like, oh, god damn it, here he is again.
I just realized the one thing I'm never going to be able to do now. I'm never going to have my moment of glory where I got to do something where you guys went, holy shit, I can't believe you did that.
My final thoughts and experiences go
Yeah,
to
tissue.
when I finally stepped up and decided that I was going to lead some of the incarnate task forces and raids and things like that. And I finally, and I don't use the term in a negative fashion, but I felt like I was an elitist in that top 10% of our server. Of like somebody knew, like the people knew that if I was forming, that I knew what I was doing and knew how to do it and knew what type of people we needed to get into it. When half the time what it really was is, Andy, look that shit up on Paragon Wiki. How do we fight this motherfucker? Okay? That's literally what happened. What would happen. But those were some of the best experiences. Was sitting up and like one eye open, like trying to finish the fucking raid. Like, oh my god, I'm dying here.
I'm putting you on follow.
Yeah, I'm setting you on follow. I'm running to Mugs to get a slice of pizza. But yeah, that was mine. How about you, sir? Any final lasting memories that you'd like to call out?
Like I said, basically everything in that game is good memories. I don't regret anything from it, from staying up till 7 a.m. doing builds to power leveling, as weird and much as I hated that from time to time. But it's all good memories, and some of it I'll remember better than World of Warcraft.
Yeah, take that, WoW, fucker.
Servers are still on, though.
Yeah, but their account system gets hacked like every other month. Wait a minute, did actually City Heroes ever get hacked?
To my recollection, no, that I recall.
Because I was thinking about that. It's like I never heard a report, but then it's like within like the last month, didn't Battle.net just get hacked again?
Anyways, final word?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Nothing?
I'm gonna save City of Heroes.
Okay.
Kickstarter, bitches.
They already thought of that.
Won't
Didn't
work.
work. Why won't it work?
We don't have the time to go into that. Andy, final thoughts?
Nah.
Nah. Well, my final thought is a quote, and I may butcher it, and I'll have to apologize if I do say it wrong. But there's this saying where heroes may be gone, but they're never forgotten.
It's
Yeah.
gonna make me cry.
Well, thank you for listening. Adam, thank you for coming on. Andy, thank you for finally finding your voice. This has been Blacklist, and we'll talk to you next time.